Chapter 908. The old man was thin, but he had a kind of majestic aura. At this moment, dazzling Taoist light rushed out of his body, and his power suddenly reached the extreme. There was nothing in front of him, as if the road had been cut off here and there was no way out. Behind him, the starry river trembled, and the void was shocked, as if it was shocked by the aura of the old man, and there was a sign that it was about to be swallowed up. He was like an abyss that wanted to swallow everything. It was amazing. Lin Sun's heart suddenly rose to his throat, and he was shocked to the extreme. What kind of terrifying cultivation could make this step? A sage? Or a king of sages? Lin Sun didn't know. To his surprise, in the end, the old man restrained his aura, and his straight figure became stooped as if he had lost all his strength. There was a sense of depression, helplessness, and unwillingness. He was like a traveler who had been wandering for a long time, or a veteran who had been on the battlefield for many years. I regard the universe as the chessboard, the past and the present as the chessboard, the Tao as the chessboard, and my life as the chess pieces to play against the heaven, but in the end, I lost, the old man sighed. That sigh, with a kind of unspeakable unwillingness, touched Lin Sun's heart greatly. What a great courage to play against the heaven! This road has been cut off. Where should I go? Is there really no way to get out of the chessboard and break the shackles? The old man's voice became lower and lower. He stood there alone, and there was nothing in front of him. It was a real big void. Then, suddenly, the old man straightened his back again, and his eyes burst with terrible divine light. His thin and strong body seemed to be burning, bursting out infinite light. With my body, I cut off the road. With my soul, I guide the maze ahead. Boom! In an instant, the old man's figure swiftly transformed into a boundless ray of light that charged into the empty expanse of space, and he vanished from sight. The picture suddenly disappeared here. Lin Sun suddenly woke up. In front of him, the mottled stone tablet stood obliquely, and the air of vicissitudes hit his face. The stone carvings on it were still messy and scribbled, but Lin Sun was soaked in cold sweat. What happened just now was incredible and unimaginably horrible. An old man sprinted through the mountains and rivers, rushing into the clouds. He strode through the dark skies, shuttling through the starry sky of the Zhou void. With one step, the stars shifted. Everything he did was actually a game of chess against the heavens, and he intended to escape the chessboard, break through the shackles, and attain great freedom. Such boldness could absolutely be said to be rare since ancient times, and even sages would probably only be able to look up to him. However, what moved Lin Sun the most was the old man's final choice, which was to use his own body to build the broken road and guide the maze with his own soul. He was unwilling to fail just like that, so he left behind a strand of incense so that the later generations would be able to complete the path he persisted in pursuing. The forest of steels was silent, and the heavens and the earth were vast. Before the ancient steels, all the experts were comprehending and deducing with concentration, and the scene was tranquil and solemn. After a long time, Lin Sun calmed down. When he looked at the sloppy stone engraving again, there was no longer the strange scene he had seen just now. Abandoning distracting thoughts, Lin Sun sensed it with his soul again. In an instant, the sloppy and mottled stone engraving seemed to turn into a vast ocean, and a terrible vortex emerged, swallowing the sky. Immediately, it turned into a storm raging between heaven and earth. Not long after, another black hole that lay across the surrounding space appeared, and it silently swallowed an expanse of the dazzling starry sky. Magnificent images that were filled with destructive power were projected in a chaotic manner. There were too many of them. The chaotic breath and the messy pictures were intertwined, making Lin Sun's eyes black. Even with his powerful soul, he felt an unbearable sense of oppression. He was upset and almost coughed up blood. This was the breath of the Great Way, but it seemed very different. Before long, he trembled all over as if he couldn't hold it any longer. The power of the Great Way was full of terrible destruction and raging breath, and even wanted to swallow up his soul and will. At this time, the original hot spiritual vein suddenly spread a strange heat flow all over Lin Sun's body. In an instant Lin Sun's mind became clear, and he felt a kind of pure and vast power. His mind became unprecedentedly calm and powerful. The chaotic breath of the Great Way full of destructive power could no longer invade his heart at this moment. Instead, he peeped into all kinds of mysteries in the chaos. Lin Sun began to concentrate on deducing. In his daze, he seemed to sense that a type of divine light arose from the quintessence spirit vein, and it faintly seemed to have transformed into a large abyss. Moreover, the sound of sages chanting scriptures seemed to be sounding out from the depths of the abyss, and it was like the illusory sound of the Tao that came from nature. He ran the power of his soul fully and displayed the secret method of Chunyo's heart. His power of perception instantly reached an unprecedented level. All kinds of mysteries imprinted in the stone engraving were deduced little by little, and then he comprehended them in his heart. As time went by, the ancient forest of steels became more and more quiet and solemn. However, some strong men were eliminated soon. Puff! A young man suddenly twitched all over, raised his head and spat out a mouthful of blood. He shouted unwillingly, "It's impossible. My comprehension and deduction are not wrong. Why can't I get its meaning?" The tranquil atmosphere was broken. The young man didn't even have time to react before he was teleported away and eliminated. In the following time, strongmen failed one after another. Some looked gloomy, some were speechless, some beat their chests and stamped their feet, some howled in frustration, and some roared crazily, but without exception, they were all eliminated. This was the fifth test, which aimed at controlling the power of the Great Way. There seemed to be no danger, but once you failed, you would be eliminated. Accompanied by the strongmen who successfully passed the test. Buzz! A stone steel glowed, and silver brilliance emerged like a waterfall, which was dreamy and illusory. Before the stone tablet, a woman revealed an excited and delighted smile, and she clenched her lily-white hands tightly as she muttered, "Star Illusion Profundity. Even though it's only a fourth-grade Grand Tao, it's able to allow me to draw upon the energy of the stars in battle and erupt with unprecedented combat strength." Clatter on another stone steel, there was a surging blood river surging across the sky, which was quite spectacular. A black-robed young man stood up and laughed. "The Blood River Great Way really exists, and it coincides with the Great Way I seek. Modest Wind Great Way." Suddenly, a gust of wind rushed out from Lei Qianjuan's body, covering the sky and covering the earth. Not long after, Mu Jianting of the Jade Void Temple opened his eyes. "The power of extreme yin and my extreme yang, just like yin and yang. My Great Way is now complete." Similar scenes happened one after another in the following time. Some were eliminated, and some passed the test, obtained the Fated Way, and passed the test. In the end, there were less than 200 people left in this ancient forest. In other words, in this period of time just now, about 300 strongmen were eliminated, and those who passed the test and obtained the Fated Way were only slightly more than 100 people, and there were nearly 50 strongmen who were deducing the stone inscription. The outside world was shrouded in a tense and depressing atmosphere. This was the last test, and it was also the most crucial stage. After passing it, not only could one obtain the Fated Way, but they could also reach the ancient path Green Lamp Tree. During this period of time, every time a strongman was eliminated, it would attract a wave of nervous attention. Sighs and sighs of regret could be heard incessantly. This time, I wonder how many people can reach the ancient path Green Lamp Tree. Many great figures weren't sure anymore. This elimination rate was too high. It was too horrifying. Of course, there was also good news that caused an uproar. Mu Jianting has comprehended the Great Way of Extreme Yin. Lei Qianjun has comprehended the Great Way of Modest Wind. Zhongli Wuji has comprehended the great way of moving mountain. This made their respective clansmen and factions beam with joy, and they were abnormally excited. It also made other cultivators feel envious and emotional. At the same time, in the ancient forest, the test had reached its final stage. There were only a few people left in the field, deducing the Tao. The other strongmen had either been eliminated or had grasped the power of the Great Way. They were now waiting outside the forest. There are only Fairy Ji, young Master Yu, Miss Luo Jia, and Demon God Lin left. Everyone was paying close attention. They could already tell that the power of the Great Way hidden in the stone steel chosen by the four was definitely extraordinary. I can agree that the Great Ways deduced by Fairy Ji and the rest are mysterious and unfathomable, but this Lin Sun is clearly playing tricks. Sha Luchan could not help but speak out. He really found it a little unpleasant to the eye, and he had to vent it out. In the huge forest, only Lin Sun had chosen the outermost stone steel, and it was very ordinary. If it were any other strongman present, they would have long deduced the power of the Great Way within. Yet, Lin Sun had yet to make a move. Although Sha Luchan hated Lin Sun to the core, he did not believe that Lin Sun's perceptivity was weaker than the other strongmen. Under such circumstances, he naturally believed that Lin Sun was deliberately mystifying things and playing trick. The other strongmen also found it strange. They had carefully sized up the stone steel Lin Sun had chosen. It was indeed very ordinary. Although the stone inscriptions on it could not be seen, just the aura of the stone steel was too ordinary. There was nothing special about it. Don't speak too early, lest you get slapped in the face again, Yu Jiaming sneered. These words stabbed into Sha Luchan's heart like a knife, making his face gloomy and a little exasperated. The other strongmen's expressions also became strange. When lighting the soul lamp, Sha Luchan was indeed cheated by Devil Lin, and his face was slapped loudly. In view of this, although the other strongmen were puzzled, no one said anything, lest they speak too early and be slapped in the face by Lin Sun. Who do you think you are? How dare you talk to me like this? Sha Luchan's eyes were cold, sweeping over Yu Jiaming like a sharp knife. Who do you think you are? You failed to sneak attack Lin Sun on the floating sea, but you were defeated in one move and fled in fear. When lighting the soul lamp, you even lost face. Now you don't learn your lesson and talk nonsense. Don't you feel ashamed? Yu Jiaming was not afraid. This was the 5th test, and killing was forbidden. Hearing this, many people in the field couldn't help laughing. Thinking about it, Sha Luchan was really unlucky. Sha Luchan was so angry that smoke was coming out of his 7 orifices. His scar was exposed in public, which made him full of shame. We'll arrive at the ancient path green lamp tree soon. At that time, I'll be the first to kill you, Devil Lin's henchman. Sha Luchan's voice was squeezed out from his teeth, full of killing intent. Chapter 909. Clang. In the depths of the steel forest, a strand of dazzling golden light surged. With a clang, it actually transformed into a sword and soared into the sky. In an instant, the sword hummed like a tide, and the golden light shook the 9 heavens. Everyone felt a piercing pain in their eyes while the skin on their entire bodies felt as if it was being pricked by needles, and they couldn't help but be astounded in their hearts. What sort of energy of the Grand Tao is this? It actually formed the phenomenon of divine swords tearing through the sky while golden radiance tainted the world? At the same time, Ji Xingyao rose to her feet. Golden light rained down from her slender figure and condensed into dazzling golden sword flowers. Hiss! The sound of people sucking in a breath of cold air could be heard. All the experts present here were top-rate figures, so they were able to determine that it was absolutely not as simple as the Grand Tao of metal. This Tao is called Grand Mystery, and its fierce aura reigns supreme in the world. It's extremely rare, and it originates from the Grand Tao of metal yet transcends the Grand Tao of metal, and it's ranked at the peak of the 1st grade. Mu Jianting muttered with a moved expression. The Great Way of Taixien. Another wave of exclaims of admiration resounded when they heard this. Fairy Ji really deserves to be a disciple of the profound inquiry sword school. Perhaps only a peerless genius like her can comprehend such an extraordinary grand Tao. For a moment, everyone looked at Ji Xingyao in a different light. Such a fairy was as bright as the moon, and her beauty was matchless. Boom! However, before they could even recover from their shock, another phenomenon appeared. Within the chaos, a green lotus swayed gently as it split into clear and turbid qi. It seemed as if it was splitting the heavens and the earth apart, and it displayed a miraculous phenomenon. Green Lotus Great Tao! Heavens, such a rare Great Tao really exists? This time, the crowd recognized it immediately and cried out in shock. According to legend, in the primordial times, a green lotus was born in the chaos, and it formed a grand Tao in the heavens and the earth by itself. It developed and divided clear and turbid qi, and it was said to be a lotus in the clouds throughout the ages. However, this was only a rumor in the end, and it seemed to be extremely inconceivable. No one had imagined that this Tao actually existed. Yu Lingkong stood up. Clear and turbid qi coiled around his body, and his entire body emanated a transcendent feeling of being rooted in the clouds and impervious to all technique. At that moment, everyone's emotions were complicated. A successor of the southern profound world's pure lands of longevity actually obtained such a great Tao opportunity in this Tao Discussion Lantern Festival. This made all the experts present feel indescribably depressed, but they had no choice but to accept it. Congratulations, Miss Ji, for grasping the Tao of supreme mystery. During the ancient times, this Tao, along with the Buddha, solitary void, and purgatory, was known as the four ultimate Tao of slaughter. Yu Lingkong spoke loudly with a warm smile on his face. I admire you even more. This Azure Lotus Grand Tao was called the true profound Tao of the heavens and earth during the ancient times. I never expected that after countless years, it would actually appear once more in the world today. Ji Xingyao's beautiful face was calm and her voice was cold. Yu Lingkong laughed lightheartedly. No matter what, the grand Taos we've grasped are all ranked on the extraordinary Tao rankings of the ancient times, and it can be said to be extraordinary Tao karma. The supreme heavenly Tao rankings. Everyone's expression was strange, and their hearts were in turmoil. During the ancient times, the saints of the world had once commented on the grand Taos of the world. They felt that amongst the 3,000 grand Taos, only 99 grand Taos could be called extraordinary, and they far surpassed the 9 grand Taos of the first grade. Later on, the cultivators of the world ranked these 99 grand Taos according to their profundities and might into the extraordinary Tao rankings. Such grand Taos were called the peak of the first grade, the Tao Karma. However, the extraordinary Tao rankings were passed down from the ancient times, and Tao Karma was extremely rare. If one didn't possess great fortune, then it was utterly impossible to comprehend and grasp it. Coupled with the passage of countless years, very few people in the current world knew about such secret. However, they could foresee that along with the news of Ji Xingyao and Yu Lingkong grasping the Grand Tao of Supreme Mystery and Azure Lotus Grand Tao, the extraordinary Tao rankings would definitely appear once more in the ancient Desolation region, and it would be known to the cultivators of the four dimensions. The atmosphere in the surroundings was deathly silent while the emotions of all the experts rose and fell. Originally, they'd all obtained their own Tao Karma, and they were extremely delighted and excited in their hearts. However, when they compared themselves to Ji Xingyao and Yu Lingkong, this sort of happiness and excitement instantly reduced greatly, and their feelings became complicated. In the outside world, they could be considered to be dazzling geniuses that were renowned throughout Western Heng, and they far surpassed the experts of the younger generation. But now, they finally understood what it meant by there was always someone stronger. There would never be a lack of geniuses in this world, and this was merely the geniuses that they'd seen. There were definitely even more monstrous geniuses and geniuses in the four dimensions of the ancient Desolation region. Suddenly, A clear cry resounded amidst this deathly silent atmosphere. All the experts in the surroundings were jolted awake from their disordered thoughts, and they were instantly flabbergasted when they raised their eyes to look over. An immortal phoenix? In the sky, rays of light flew like rain, and it was illusory and illusory. A divine bird unfolded its wings and emanated a clear cry that surged through the heavens and the earth. It was too gorgeous and dazzling. Its wings were over 30 m long, and its body was divine and handsome. Numerous divine rays of light enveloped its body, and it emanated a rain of light that was pure like an immortal's. It was too miraculous. It was as if a legendary divine bird had appeared in the world, and it made the world appear auspicious, ethereal, and solemn. The ancestor was right. This last disciple of the sword saint of Miluo Palace, Ling Ju, probably has the blood of the immortal phoenix flowing in her body. Yulinkong's eyes surged with light as he guessed something. The path of the immortal phoenix, a legendary path that leads to the heavens. Ji Xingyao was alarmed as well, and she recalled many rumors. The immortal phoenix was a living being that was like a legend even in the ancient times. It was born from nature, mysterious, terrifying, and arrogant. The path of the immortal phoenix was even rarer and unique, and it was almost impossible to see. The reason was very simple. Only cultivators with the blood of the immortal phoenix had the ability to comprehend this path. As for the descendants of the immortal phoenix, no matter if it was in the ancient times or in the current world, they were almost impossible to see. They were too rare. Therefore, the rumors about this path were extremely vague. Since the beginning of time, this path has almost never appeared again. They never thought that it would appear today. The surroundings were deathly silent while their attention was drawn over, and many experts even revealed expressions of shock and infatuation. The immortal phoenix danced through the sky while letting out clear cries that shook the 9 heavens. Not to mention them, even those old fellows of the current world had probably never seen such a scene. At this moment, Luo Jia stood up. Her elegant and extraordinary figure was bathed in a layer of hazy light, and she was like a rain of light that caused her to seem even more mysterious and ethereal. "Congratulations, Miss Luo Jia." Yulinkong was the first to break the silence. He smiled as he congratulated, and the gaze he shot at Luo Jia carried a trace of undisguised admiration. "Fellow Taoist, you've awakened the bloodline within your body. From today onward, your cultivation will definitely advance by leaps and bounds, and the Grand Tao is within reach." Ji Xingyao spoke in a clear voice as well. "I don't deserve your praise." Luo Jia was just like before. She was gentle and refined like an orchid in an empty gorge, and she emanated an otherworldly and pure aura. Many experts couldn't help but sigh with emotion when they saw this. None of them had expected that 3 types of extraordinary Grand Taos would actually appear successively during the Tao Lantern discussion. Every single one of them could be said to be rare, and they were sufficient to shake the ancients and dazzle the contemporaries. This had never occurred during the Tao Lantern discussion in the past, and it would definitely cause a mighty uproar if news of this were to spread to the outside world. There was silence as everyone was lost in their own thoughts. Everything that had happened today was just too shocking, and they found it difficult to digest. But in this silent atmosphere, a sneer sounded. Demon God Lin is the only one left again. I'd like to see how long he can continue acting mysterious." Everyone didn't even need to look to know that the person who spoke was Sha Luchan. Indeed, they saw Sha Luchan crossing his arms over his chest with a sneer on his lips. His gaze was fixed on Lin Sun, who stood at the outermost periphery of the steel forest. Everyone had odd expressions. Ignoring Sha Luchan's mockery, even they were puzzled. That was a stone stele at the outermost periphery of the steel forest. Even though it was old and mottled, it was really too ordinary. With Demon God Lin's perception, he should have long comprehended the great Tao power imprinted within it, but he had yet to finish inferring it. That was very strange. Perhaps this steel is special, and the great Tao imprinted within it conflicts with demon god Lin's path of Tao. That's why it's difficult to control, someone analyzed after some thought. Many people nodded. This was also the truth. This was not the first time such a thing had happened. Some practitioners had extraordinary talent and superb perception. But when their path of Tao was in conflict with some kind of great Tao, even if they tried their best to comprehend it, they might still get nothing in the end. Conflict of great Tao? This guy is not stupid. How could he choose a steel that conflicts with his own path of Tao to deduce? Sha Luchan snorted coldly. In my opinion, this guy must be playing tricks. Maybe he has some bad ideas and plans to cheat others. But this time, I won't be fooled. Everyone was speechless. Although Zhongli Wuji and Qing Lianer didn't speak, they all agreed with Sha Luchan's words. Lin Sun was too insidious. The more abnormal his actions were, the more it proved that there was something fishy going on. You overestimate yourself. Compared with the great Tao power in the steel, Lin Sun won't waste his time to scheme against a defeated opponent like you, Yu Jiaming said coldly. You're really courting death. Sha Luchan looked gloomy and disliked Yu Jiaming more and more. Just you wait. This time, not only will Demon Lin die, but you will also die with him. Yu Jiaming laughed and didn't bother to argue with him. Sha Luchan was very disdainful. He was very sure that if it weren't for Lin Sun's help, Yu Jiaming would have been eliminated in the floating sea. How could he have the opportunity to reach the fifth test of Tao discussion? Perhaps it was because of this that he was willing to be Lin Sun's lackey. How despicable! Sha Luchan's anger dissipated a lot when he thought of this. At this moment, Zhongli Wuji suddenly chuckled. When lighting the soul lamp, Demon Lin worked hard in vain and got nothing in the end. Will he make the same mistake this time? Everyone looked strange, but no one said anything. Demon Lin was too evil. Anyone who thought he couldn't do it seemed to be slapped in the face by him in the end. No one paid attention to him, which was embarrassing. Zhongli Wuji's expression stagnated, and then he said, "It seems that you have other ideas. But in my opinion, it's a pity that this time he will get nothing." As soon as his voice fell, an obscure and terrible fluctuation suddenly emerged around Lin Sun like a black hole. Suddenly, everyone's expression changed. Chapter 9-10. It was on purpose. Demon God Lin was definitely doing it on purpose. Zhongli Wuji's expression was terrible. He was so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. He had already been extremely vigilant and guarded against Lin Sun, but he never expected to be slapped in the face. The most shameful thing was that he had fallen into the same trap more than once. Even his routine had not changed. Sha Luchan stiffened as he broke out in a cold sweat. He had been about to speak, but Zhongli Wuji had beaten him to it, allowing him to escape the trap. This fiend God Lin was too sinister and he was too patient. He could play the same trick in a different way, making it impossible to guard against. However, not many people mocked Zhongli Wuji at that moment. All eyes were on Lin Sun, filled with curiosity. In any case, Demon God Lin was a peerless figure after all. Yet, he had chosen a stone steel in the periphery of the steel forest to develop his Tao. What kind of great Tao power had he comprehended? Lin Sun's whole body was surging with obscure fluctuations of the Great Way, like a slowly rotating black hole, causing the nearby void to collapse inch by inch silently and be torn into turbulent flows. Tao of Maelstrom? Many experts had odd expressions, their eyes filled with pity. The Tao of Maelstrom could only be considered a fourth-grade Great Tao. Although its offensive power was unique and overbearing, it was inferior to any of the 9 great Taos of the first grade when compared to the heavenly Tao. After spending so much time, he had only comprehended a fourth-grade Great Tao. It would be normal if it happened to other experts, but it was somewhat tragic when it happened to Demon God Lin. Only peerless figures like Ji Xingyao and Yu Lingkong frowned, feeling somewhat bewildered. They could tell at a glance that the great Tao power Lin Sun controlled was definitely not as simple as the Tao of Maelstrom. Its aura was too terrifying. It was like an abyss, like a prison. There was an aura that made one's heart palpitate. But before they could sense it carefully, they saw the phenomena around Lin Sun vanish into his body like a tide, leaving nothing behind. They could no longer sense it. This Ji Xingyao and the others narrowed their eyes. They were increasingly certain that Lin Sun had gained something else and mastered an extremely rare great Tao power. After all of them were from ancient sects and possessed great knowledge, so they were extremely familiar with the 99 ancient Grand Taos. But now, they couldn't understand the power of the great way that Lin Sun had comprehended, which was incredible. What was it? Whoosh! They immediately looked at the old, mottled and seemingly ordinary ancient stele in front of Lin Sun. However, unlike before, this stone tablet carried a wisp of mystery in their eyes. What was going on? The other experts were stunned, and they couldn't help but look over when they noticed the unusual actions of Ji Xingyao and the others. Crack! Crack! However, before they could see it clearly, they saw the stone tablet had actually collapsed inch by inch, causing bits of stone to fall off, and then it rustled as it transformed into ash that dispersed into the surroundings. Everyone's pupils constricted. What's going on? They'd never heard of a stone tablet being destroyed in any Tao Discussion Lantern Festival in the past. Not to mention destroying it, it was impossible to even touch it, because every single stone tablet was covered in a terrifying restriction, and the slightest touch would cause one to be shaken back by the restriction. If one persisted in going about things the wrong way, one might even be heavily injured and eliminated. But now, a stone tablet had been destroyed right before their eyes, and this seemed to be too unusual. As expected, the power of the great way that Lin Sun comprehended is bound to be extraordinary. All of a sudden, the gazes that Ji Xingyao and the others shot at Lin Sun had changed. There was surprise and a trace of vigilance in their eyes. On the other hand, the other experts realized that something was wrong. How could such a strange thing have occurred if Lin Sun had only comprehended the fourth-grade Vortex Tao? What exactly had Demon God Lin comprehended from that stone tablet? Lin Sun paid no attention to the gazes from the surroundings, and he'd already awoken from his comprehension. However, when he confirmed the power of the great way that he'd grasped, there was an indescribable strange feeling in his heart. On the 4 acupoints of the heart vessel, the pure and white spiritual vein was enshrouded and glowing. Sometimes it turned into a vortex, a black hole, and sometimes it turned into a great abyss that swallowed the sky. It was suffused with a terrifying and frightening aura. This great way was called star obliteration and devouring sky. It was a kind of great way that had been lost in ancient times, but its power could be said to be boundlessly terrifying. When cultivated to the extreme, one would be like an abyss that could swallow the sky and annihilate the universe. Lin Sun would never forget the old man who was running wildly in the depths of the starry sky, nor would he forget his terrifying power that shook the sky and made the universe tremble. He was now sure that the old man also possessed the talent of great abyss-devouring sky and mastered the power of star obliteration and devouring sky. The power of this great way is obscure and terrifying, and its destructive aura dominates the heavens. However, it's also too difficult to comprehend. After deducing for a long time, I've only barely grasped a trace of its essence, which is not even a little bit, Lin Sun murmured in his heart. But even so, he still had a kind of indescribable shock. Although it was only a trace of essence, when used in battle, the power it exerted was absolutely beyond imagination. Fellow Taoist Lin Sun, may I know what sort of Tao insight you've comprehended? Suddenly, Mu Jianting spoke with curiosity. Instantly, the gazes of everyone shot towards Lin Sun. The great way of the vortex. Lin Sun casually made up a lie without blushing, and he even sighed deeply as if he was regretful. Lin Sun, aren't you being too hypocritical? Who would believe such a lie? Someone couldn't help but frown. Ji Xingyao, Yu Lingkong, and the others despised him in their hearts as well. Does this fellow really think we can't see through it? Lin Sun said with a grin. It's up to you to believe it or not. Everyone was speechless, and they were even more certain in their hearts that the great way this fellow comprehended was surely extraordinary. Then let me ask you, did you seize the first in the second test of the Tao discussion? Ji Xingyao asked abruptly. Everyone was stunned, and then they suddenly recalled something. Right up until now, they still haven't figured out exactly who obtained the special reward for the first in the limit realm. Lin Sun said in surprise, Xingyao, are you expressing your appreciation for me? He spoke in a very intimate manner, and those who didn't know might really think that he and Ji Xingyao had an extremely intimate relationship. Shameless. Ji Xingyao's voice was as cold as snow, and she was annoyed in her heart. This fellow is simply hopeless. The other experts slightly admired Lin Sun because he dared to flirt with Fairy Ji in public. Isn't he afraid of being skinned alive by those pursuers of Fairy Ji? Lin Sun did sense a strand of killing intent from Yu Lingkong. He smiled and didn't care. This proud girl, Ji Xingyao, had caused him so much trouble, so what was wrong with flirting with her? This caused Yu Lingkong to feel even more uncomfortable. Everyone present was able to discern his feelings towards Ji Xingyao, but it just so happened that Lin Sun dared to do this repeatedly, and it caused killing intent to surge in his heart. The fifth test of the Tao discussion is coming to an end, and we'll be heading to the green lamp tree soon. At that time, don't forget what you said at the bank of the floating sea. Yu Lingkong's voice was indifferent and calm. Everyone's heart trembled, and they remembered that Yu Lingkong once said that he would kill demon god Lin when they arrived at the green lamp tree. At that time, not only Yu Lingkong, but also peerless figures such as Zhongli Wuji, Sha Luchan, Qing Lianer, and Zhuo Quanglan had also spoken out against Lin Sun. The show is finally coming. Li Qinghuan's lips curved. He wouldn't participate in it, but he was happy to watch the fun. The atmosphere in the field suddenly became somewhat indescribably oppressive and silent. All the heroes realized that when they arrived in front of the green lantern tree, a shocking storm was bound to play out. As for demon god Lin, would he be able to survive the crushing pressure of this storm? No one dared to be sure. In this regard, Lin Sun was not only not afraid, but also a little tempted. Yu Lingkong and others couldn't wait to kill him, and he also wanted to kill these guys. On the way to the Tao discussion, he had already accumulated a bellyful of anger, and he was waiting to get even with them when they arrived at the green lamp tree. Clang! The familiar sound of the ancient bell rang. The heroes were shocked, and their eyes lit up. The green lamp tree was finally going to unveil the mysterious veil in front of them. Clang! The sound of the ancient bell drifted through the azure parasol mountain and also spread to the outside world. Suddenly, the practitioners who had been paying attention to all this were excited. The 5 tests had ended and finally, the last big competition was coming. How many people are left? 72. Sure enough, this Tao discussion is different from the past. This time, the number of strong practitioners who will arrive at the green lamp tree is more than in previous years. While everyone was talking, they all looked at the azure parasol mountain in the distance, looking at the green lamp tree on the mountainside. The ancient tree was vigorous, with a coiling dragon shape. Its trunk and branches seemed to be made of bronze juice, and its flower buds were like bronze lamps, sprinkling thousands of bright lights. Each bronze flower bud contained a good fortune, or a peerless ancient treasure, or a magical inheritance, or a rare treasure of heaven and earth. Only the strong practitioners who arrived at the green lamp tree were qualified to fight for such a great fortune. At this last juncture, there's bound to be a fierce bloodbath, and some geniuses will fall. Is it worth it? Someone murmured. For the good fortune, everything is worth it. Someone's voice was sonorous. That's right. How can there be no blood in the competition of the Tao? Since ancient times, which one of the geniuses didn't kill their way out of a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. Don't worry. When those geniuses came here, they'd surely expected that there would be a bloody battle like this. Every single one of them surely possesses a trump card that's sufficient to protect themselves. Otherwise, the sects and clans behind them wouldn't allow them to take such a risk. While they were talking, a strange change suddenly occurred on the azure parasol mountain in the distance. Rumble! The vigorous and ancient green lamp tree seemed to have awakened from its slumber. Its trunk kept growing, and its dense branches extended high into the void, as if it was going to cover the sky. Chapter 9:11. Rumble. Along with the ceaseless growth of the divine tree, the entire dark parasol mountain rumbled while the heavens and the earth shook, and a shocking scene appeared. Violet radiance seethed on the mountain, lightning interweaved together, and a myriad of auspicious rays of light shot out violently like dazzling rain, causing the entire dark parasol mountain to be enveloped in a divine and grand aura. My God! The hearts of many cultivators trembled, and they felt oppressed to the point of being on the verge of suffocation. Some cultivators with slightly inferior cultivations even broke out in cold sweat and almost fell to the ground. The divine and dignified aura swept through the heavens and the earth like a tsunami, and even Granny Golden Crane and the other great figures were terrified while their bodies tensed up. It was too miraculous. But in next to no time, a sound that was like the sound of nature resounded, and it was like the sound of a bell being struck. Instantly, dark Parasol Mountain stopped rumbling, and it stood there solemnly while the heavens and the earth became silent. At the mountainside, the green lantern tree had transformed into a towering divine tree, and its bronze trunk shot into the sky like a pillar that held up the heavens and the earth. The densely packed branches extended high into the void, like paths leading to the heavenly realm. On the branches, numerous lantern-like flower buds were swaying in the wind at this moment, and they emanated the sound of the Tao that was like the sound of morning bells and evening drums. For a time, everything was silent while the heavens and the earth were solemn, and the cultivators in the distance felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted from their shoulders. The sound of the Tao that was like the sound of nature reverberated, and it carried a force that calmed the mind. Everyone felt as if their entire bodies had been cleansed, and they felt tranquil and peaceful while their thoughts became clear. It's too miraculous. All the cultivators were shocked, and they had a deeper feeling that Dark Parasol Mountain was extraordinary. It deserved its name as a divine mountain, and it was like a true miracle. Look quickly. Those bronze flower buds have undergone a transformation, a cultivator exclaimed. On the green lantern tree, over 1,000 bronze flower buds had actually transformed from the size of a fist to the size of a lantern. Every single petal was interweaved with the aura of the Grand Tao and emanated the glow of the Tao. They seemed as if they were alive, and they emanated dazzling vitality. The moment they bloom and bear fruit is the moment creation is born. Granny Golden Crane spoke word by word with a burning gaze. At the same time, all the cultivators saw the figures of experts appearing in front of the towering ancient path green lamp tree. Without a doubt, the experts that had passed through the 5 levels of the Tao discussion had started to arrive before the green lantern tree. So high! Lin Sun looked up and marveled in his heart. At this moment, he and the other powerhouses were teleported to the ancient path's green lamp tree. Raising his head, he saw the trunk of the ancient tree soaring into the sky like a huge dragon. It was so tall that he could not see the end of it. This place was very tranquil and auspicious. There was a divine aura hanging down from the ancient trees. Bronze flower buds that looked like lanterns could be clearly seen with the naked eye, hanging on the densely packed branches like green lamp. Even though they hadn't bloomed, they interweaved together and emanated a glow of the Tao that emanated divine radiance. They were dazzling like numerous tiny suns, and they emanated strands of the tune of the Tao that seemed ethereal like the tune of nature. For a moment, all the overmatches, including Lin Sun, Ji Xingyao and Yu Lingkong, were shocked. The scene in front of them could not be described with the word sacred. It was too extraordinary and simply didn't seem like something that could be possessed in this world. It was like a divine tree from the immortal world that had fallen into the mortal world. Over 1,000 ancient Tao flowers, doesn't that mean there are over 1,000 fortunate encounters hidden within them? An expert's heart trembled as he spoke with burning gazes. You can't say that. Those are still flower buds. Only those that can bloom and bear fruit will be able to give birth to fortunate encounters. However, so many flower buds have never been condensed in the past Tao Discussion Lantern Festival. I can foresee that the fortunate encounters that are born this time are bound to be great. There were also experts that analyzed calmly. Even then, the conclusion they obtained still caused their hearts to palpitate. According to legend, the ancient Tao flowers either give birth to peerless ancient treasures, rare treasures of the heavens and the earth, or even peerless inheritances branded within them, but amongst the numerous fortunate encounters, there's only one that can be called the number one fortune. Whoever obtains it will be the biggest winner of the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival. Exactly. I remember that Senior Mu Tsangxue from the Profound Inquiry Sword School had once seized the number one fortune and obtained a heaven and earth profound root. The gazes of all the experts burned, and they were slightly unable to restrain themselves. However, the flower buds on the divine tree hadn't bloomed yet. At this moment, all of them were forcefully restraining themselves. Otherwise, they would have probably fought for it at the first possible moment. Miss Ji, how about going up with me to have a look? Suddenly, Yu Lingkong smiled and invited Ji Xingyao. Ji Xingyao hesitated for a moment, but finally nodded. All right. Then I'll escort you. Yu Lingkong smiled casually. As he spoke, he inadvertently glanced at Lin Sun and then withdrew his gaze. Lin Sun's black eyes narrowed. He knew that this was a silent warning and declaration of war. Soon, Yu Lingkong and Ji Xingyao stepped on the trunk of the divine tree that was so thick that it would take more than 10 people to encircle it, and flashed up. Boom! It could be seen that as soon as the two rushed up, terrifying silver lightning flashed on the divine tree and struck down to stop them. Clatter, their figures glowed fearlessly. They moved forward amidst the interweaving lightning with irresistible force, and soon rushed to an extremely high place. All the experts in the field were shocked. There was a terrible magical power on the ancient path green lamp tree, which could be turned into killing power to attack practitioners. The higher one went up the tree, the more terrifying the killing power would be. Not to mention ordinary cultivators, even top geniuses like them did not dare to take it lightly. But it was obvious that Yu Lingkong and Ji Xingyao were not ordinary top figures. They seemed to be very relaxed and at ease along the way. It didn't take long for them to reach the height of the trunk, and their figures were almost invisible. The higher you go, the greater the chance of getting good fortune. And the most precious good fortune is almost at the top of the ancient path green lamp tree. Unfortunately, only a small number of people have the foundation and ability to reach that area. Some experts sighed with emotion. As they spoke, some experts took action one after another and rushed to the ancient path green lamp tree. Although they couldn't reach the crown, the branches of the divine tree were dense, and thousands of ancient path flowers were distributed in different areas, so there was still hope for other practitioners to compete for it. Guys, don't you want to deal with me here? Why do you want to leave now? Suddenly, Lin Sun noticed that Sha Luchan and others also took action and rushed to the ancient path green lamp tree. The crowd was stunned and shocked. Was Demon Lin going to kill them before snatching the good fortune? Humph, compared with the good fortune here, your life is worthless. It's not too late to kill you after we snatch the good fortune. Sha Luchan's face darkened and he shouted. Don't talk nonsense with him. No one can leave here before the time is right. We will have plenty of time to kill him, Zhongli Wuji said slowly. Let's go. Qing Lianer was also a little impatient. If it weren't for the good fortune, she would have already killed Lin Sun. A cold light flashed in Lin Sun's black eyes. He instantly realized that these guys had formed an alliance and were going to go in and out together. This surprised Lin Sun a little. In fact, Lin Sun didn't know that his amazing strength in the 5 tests of Tao discussion had already aroused the vigilance and fear of Sha Luchan and others. In order to ensure that they could kill him, they had already secretly formed an alliance. What's the hurry? What's the harm in fighting first? Lin Sun had accumulated a bellyful of anger along the way. At this moment, he couldn't restrain himself anymore. How could he watch them slip away? Boom! As he spoke, his figure flashed and he had already rushed out. The chi around him roared, making him look like a demon with disdain. The other strong people who hadn't acted yet all gasped. Before, they had all expected that there would be a fierce, bloody battle when they arrived here. They even thought that Lin Sun was in a dangerous situation because there were too many opponents. But who would have thought that Lin Sun had taken the initiative before those opponents? He was so strong that it seemed that he wasn't afraid of being besieged by those peerless figures at all. "You're courting death," Sha Luchan shouted angrily. Noticing that Lin Sun was rushing towards him, he turned around without hesitation and waved the golden trident in his hand to chop at Lin Sun. Boom! Lin Sun stretched out his hand and exerted the Swanee seal to suppress Sha Luchan. The moment the two collided, the trident in Sha Luchan's hand was directly blown away, wailing as if it was about to break. As if struck by lightning, Sha Luchan was shaken and flew out fiercely. He spat out blood and almost fell from the lamp of ancient path. The whole audience was silent. All the strong people were stiff all over and almost couldn't believe their eyes. Sha Luchan couldn't resist a single blow? In front of the pavilion of spring and autumn a few days ago, they had seen the scene of Lin Sun fighting with Sha Luchan and Qing Lianer with their own eyes. At that time, Sha Luchan still had the ability to fight against Lin Sun. He was extremely fierce and strong, showing the demeanor that a peerless figure should have. But who would have thought that only a few days had passed, Sha Luchan was already unable to fight against Lin Sun. In fact, the reason was very simple. It wasn't that Sha Luchan was too weak, but that Lin Sun was too strong at the moment. He was much stronger than before he participated in the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival. Boom! After a successful blow, Lin Sun rushed forward without any hesitation and smashed down with his fist. He wanted to take this opportunity to kill Sha Luchan. His whole body was filled with clear brilliance. He was really like a demon with a domineering spirit, decisive and powerful. Ding! However, a strange sharp sound like the sound of metal clashing suddenly sounded at this moment, which made Lin Sun, who was originally rushing forward, suddenly feel a kind of extreme danger. His figure suddenly retreated and disappeared out of thin air. Whoosh! At the same time, a black flying shuttle swept past where he had been, tearing a straight crack in the void, extremely sharp. It could be foreseen that if Lin Sun reacted a little slower, his body would be pierced in an instant. The shuttle was no more than 7 inches long, as thick as a chopstick. The tip of the shuttle was like a wolf's fang, radiating cold light. Its surface was surging with black flame Taoist patterns. Floating in the void, it exuded a breathtaking fierce breath. The most frightening thing was that its speed was extremely fast, as if it was teleporting. Chapter 9:12. Dark Spirit Demon Subduing Shuttle. An ancestral ancient treasure of the Zhongli clan, with terrifying power comparable to an emperor's weapon. Generally speaking, such treasures were in the hands of old monsters in the King realm. But it was very obvious that for the sake of allowing Zhongli Wuji to seize fortune during the Tao Discussion Lantern meeting, the Zhongli clan had paid a huge price, and they'd given this treasure to Zhongli Wuji to utilize as a great weapon to protect himself and kill his enemies. Let's go! Zhongli Wuji waved his sleeve and put away the dark spirit demon subduing shuttle. Then he glanced at Lin Sun coldly and rushed to the top of the divine tree with Sha Luchan and the others. Lin Sun, don't chase them. Yu Jiaming rushed forward to stop him, They have already formed an alliance. Conflict with them at this time will do more harm than good. Well, I just want to test their trump card, Lin Sun said with a smile. He didn't intend to chase them. He also knew that it was not suitable to fight at this time. If they fought before the fortune appeared, it would cause some unnecessary accidents. But after this test, Lin Sun realized that Zhongli Wuji really had a powerful trump card in his hands. For example, the Black Spirit Exorcism Shuttle was an extremely powerful supreme weapon. If Lin Sun hadn't cultivated his spiritual power to the level of divine flower gathering in one's head, and detected a trace of killing intent in advance, he would have been hurt by the sneak attack. Since Zhongli Wuji was like this, it was conceivable that Qing Lianer and Sha Luchan must have similar trump cards in their hands. Let's go together. Lin Sun decided to go to the top of the divine tree. Unexpectedly, Yu Jiaming refused. If it wasn't for you bringing me along, then with my ability, I would have been eliminated a long time ago during the 5 tests of the Tao discussion. I'm already very satisfied, and I don't intend to compete for this fortune. His tone was calm, yet it was filled with resolution. This moved Lin Sun. The fortune on the ancient green lamp tree was enough to make any practitioner covet it and fight for it crazily. But Yu Jiaming chose to stop at such a suitable time, which undoubtedly required great perseverance and determination. This kind of firm will was so rare that Lin Sun couldn't help admiring him. It could be foreseen that Yu Jiaming might not even be as good as the top talents at this time, but with such a disposition and spirit, he would rise to the top sooner or later. In the end, Lin Sun went on the road alone. Yu Jiaming chose to stay at the bottom of the ancient tree, which was a relatively safe area. Presently, all the experts had ascended the divine tree to fight for fortune, so it was utterly impossible for them to divide their energy and spend their time on dealing with Yu Jiaming. Boom! As soon as he stepped onto the incomparably thick trunk of the green lantern tree, a dense storm of lightning struck down. Lin Sun didn't choose to resist or resolve it. Instead, he used the ice dragon steps and dodged the heavy blows with a slight flash and rushed to the high ground. It was as if he was taking a leisurely stroll in the courtyard, his figure indistinct. The divine tree towered into the sky. Its trunk was incomparably thick, and its branches extended into the depths of the void like paths. Walking on it was like walking into a maze. Just a moment later, Lin Sun had to stop as another battle broke out in front of him. Boom! A strong man turned into a purple python with a length of more than 30 meters, and his whole body was steaming with purple brilliance. He leaped up and pounced on the other side. There, a young man was trying to get close to a bronze flower bud. When he was attacked, he suddenly let out a roar, and a pair of snow-white wings grew out of his back, which were as sharp as knives. A fierce battle broke out between the two. Boom! Suddenly, there was a roar of killing intent, and divine brilliance burst out. The purple python's whole body was as hard as immortal gold. When it was hit by the young man's wings, it made a harsh sound and burst of sparks. This was a fierce battle for fortune. Soon, the outcome was determined. The young man was seriously injured, and his wings were almost broken. His feathers were stained with blood, and half of his body was damaged. He fled to the distance. The purple python's figure flashed and turned into a young woman. She walked to the bronze flower bud and glanced around vigilantly. Obviously, she took a fancy to the fortune contained in this bronze flower bud. After defeating the young man, she occupied this place and regarded it as a forbidden area. When she saw Lin Sun, the woman's pupils shrank, revealing a deep fear. Lin Sun ignored her and continued to move forward. Until Lin Sun's figure disappeared, the woman breathed a sigh of relief and immediately showed a look of self-mockery. Yes, a peerless figure like demon god Lin would not compete with her for fortune. Boom! Not long after Li Qinghuan moved forward, another battle broke out. A strong man took out a thunder talisman, which emitted red lightning and attacked Li Qinghuan. Li Qinghuan waved his hands. Yin and yang qi emerged and turned into a black and white millstone, which rumbled and crushed down. A fierce battle broke out between the two. To Lin Sun's surprise, the strong man's face was strange, but he was obviously a peerless figure who was equally matched with Li Qinghuan. Whoosh! However, when Li Qinghuan noticed Lin Sun in the distance, his face suddenly changed slightly. He stopped the fierce battle and disappeared. The strong man holding the Thunder Talisman was stunned. When he saw Lin Sun, he immediately reacted with a strong vigilance. That guy runs very fast. Lin Sun ignored him. He glanced in the direction where Li Qinghuan left and continued to move forward. Along the way, he also discovered bronze flower buds one after another, but almost all of them were being fought over by others, and tragic battles were taking place. "You're courting death." Suddenly, a shout sounded in the distance. Mu Jianting, the future leader of Yushu Temple, also encountered an opponent. It was a strong man of Sun clan. He moved like the wind and was as fast as a ghost. He held a pair of blood-red bronze mace and swung it down, causing the void to collapse and explode. His speed was extremely fast, and the bronze mace in his hand was obviously a pair of ancient treasures with terrifying lethality. It set off a dazzling bloody light. Mu Jianting's figure was majestic, and his Taoist robe was fluttering. He was obviously angry after fighting for a long time. He no longer held back and took out an ancient sword with pine patterns. Clang! A streak of sword light appeared. It was vast, glorious, and extremely resplendent. It was obviously a supreme weapon, but Mu Jianting used it without reservation because he didn't want to waste time. After a while, with a puff, the strong man of Sun clan was beheaded, and his headless body fell to the ground. A top-notch sky pride was killed just like that. Ah! However, before Lin Sun could think more, a scream came from another direction. A strong man whose strength could be said to be top-notch was killed. His body exploded, and his flesh and blood flew everywhere. He died miserably. His opponent was the great barbaric lightning clan's Lei Qianjun. His entire body was coiled with numerous strands of dazzling and resplendent lightning that seemed like chains, and it caused him to seem like a god of lightning that possessed a mighty bearing and terrifying might. Just now, he only waved his fists and killed his opponent easily. The combat effectiveness he showed was extremely amazing. This was a bloody battle for fortune. It was cruel and bloody, and even the top talent of a clan would die here. And this was only what Lin Sun had encountered. In other areas of the green lamp tree, there were many more battles taking place. Indeed, the fortune hadn't appeared yet, but the bronze flower buds on the tree would bloom and bear fruit sooner or later. In order to seize the fortune as soon as possible, conflict and killing were bound to be inevitable. This made Lin Sun vigilant, and he became more cautious. Along the way, he constantly sensed with his spiritual awareness and found some mysteries. Some of the bronze flower buds seemed to be alive, sprinkling dreamy Taoist light, as if they would bloom and bear fruit at any time. Some, on the contrary, were motionless, without any signs of life. It was the first kind of bronze flower bud that caused the heroes to fight for it. Obviously, they all knew that if the fortune came, it would inevitably appear in the bronze flower bud filled with life. In short, the strength of the life of the bronze flower bud was the basis to judge the size of the fortune. The war broke out. On the green lamp tree, in different areas, fierce and bloody battles were taking place everywhere. The sacred and solemn tree seemed to have turned into a purgatory at this moment. And those who were fighting for it were the most dazzling heaven's favorites. If it wasn't for the miraculousness of this tree and the unfathomable restriction that enveloped it, merely the fluctuations of destruction created by this chaotic battle would be sufficient to destroy a mountain and cause unimaginable calamity. Lin Sun didn't get involved in the battles. His goal was the top of the tree. Suddenly, Lin Sun stopped and squinted at a bronze flower bud. Earlier, the bronze flower bud was still motionless and without the slightest fluctuation of life. However, right at this moment a shocking change occurred. It seemed as if it had awakened from deep slumber, and it emanated dazzling divine radiance that was ethereal and divine. According to the momentum of this awakening, it would not take long for it to bloom and bear fruit. Lin Sun was immediately tempted. Clatter! But at this moment, someone rushed to Lin Sun and attacked him. It was a man in a golden robe. He shook his hand and a scroll unfolded. In the scroll, the sun was destroyed, the moon sank, and the mountains collapsed. The scene was horrible. There was no doubt that this was definitely a terrible secret treasure, a great killing weapon. Obviously, the man in a golden robe also knew Lin Sun's strength, so he didn't underestimate him. As soon as he attacked, he used his trump card. Swish! Lin Sun didn't hesitate. Because the secret treasure displayed by the opponent was too powerful, he didn't hold back anymore, and the broken sword swept out. The broken sword was a divine weapon, and its might could be said to be heaven-defying when executed with the mind control technique. Now Lin Sun couldn't be compared to the past. His soul strength had stepped into the realm of divine flowers at one's head, so he was even more skilled in controlling the broken sword. Moreover, its might was much stronger than before. The broken sword was dazzling like a wisp of illusory white light, and with a swish, it tore apart the scroll that enveloped over like a sharp pair of scissors. You! The man in a golden robe stiffened, and he almost didn't dare believe his eyes. The reason he dared to attack Lin Sun without fear was because he relied on the scroll in his hand. It was an ancient secret treasure with unfathomable might, and it was branded with the aura of a king, causing it to be boundlessly terrifying. But now, it was destroyed as soon as they collided. This caused the man in a golden robe to instantly realize that the broken sword in Lin Sun's hand was even more formidable than the secret treasure in his hand. Chapter 9:13. At the same time, Lin Sun had already rushed over. He pressed his palm and fingers in the void, and a flaming galaxy emerged. The stars burned and exploded, and it was a terrifying scene. This was the flaming galaxy, a real peerless Taoist method. The golden-robed man's expression changed greatly, and he fled to the distance at an extraordinary speed. However, he failed to escape at this moment, and Lin Sun quickly approached him. The reason was that Lin Sun was faster than him, and Lin Sun seemed to teleport as soon as he took the Ice Drake step. Boom! The surging and exploding galaxy rolled back and completely drowned the golden-robed man's figure. No! No! In the sea of fire, the golden-robed man screamed with terror and helplessness, but he died miserably on the spot in the end, and was burned to ashes. Some powerhouses in the distance who noticed this scene gasped with horror in their hearts. He was too strong. Once demon god Lin started killing, his means were peerlessly overbearing and terrifying, and there was no chance for others to dodge. You're courting death. Suddenly, Lin Sun turned around and saw that someone had taken advantage of his battle to flash towards the bronze flower bud. Swish! A dark blue crystal chain that was only as thick as a thumb swept out, and it seemed to intend to bind the bronze flower bud and take it for itself. But before it could get close, Lin Sun's figure had already rushed over, and he grabbed the blue chain with his palm and fingers, and then he shook his wrist with force. Swish! The chain made a harsh and violent vibration, and at the other end of the chain, a powerhouse hiding in the dark was dragged out. This was an extremely capable young man with dark skin and long and narrow eyes. He reacted extremely decisively in the face of this sudden change. He abandoned the chain in his hand without hesitation, and his body flashed in the air, and he flashed away like an arrow leaving the bow. You still want to leave? A cold light surged in Lin Sun's black eyes as he punched out with an all-conquering fist, and the power of the Tao of water was perfectly integrated into it. Boom! Along with a terrifying bang, the capable young man was killed in an instant. However, to everyone's surprise, his shattered body had turned into a golden rain of light that scattered down. Clearly, it wasn't his original body. Golden Cicada Talisman. In an instant, Lin soon realized that this guy had used the power of the golden cicada talisman to escape. In the blink of an eye, one of the top elites had died and the other had fled. The nearby experts felt their hearts turn cold. Fiend Celestial Lin's combat strength was just too heaven-defying. He was able to sweep through everything in his path, and no one could withstand a single strike from him. For a time, no one dared to approach this place. Just then, the bronze flower bud that attracted Lin Sun's attention began to bloom, its petals trembling and blooming. All of a sudden, it was as if a bronze lamp had been lit up, and a dazzling Tao light rushed out from the stamen. But in the blink of an eye, the blooming flower withered and its petals fluttered down. At the same time, a bright red light fell from it. Lin Sun reached out and grabbed it. It was a jade-like stone with a little tear stain on it. The tear stain was like blood, bright red and dazzling. It was only the size of an almond, yet it weighed an entire 5,000 kilograms. Its entire body was smooth and glistening, and it emanated strands of warm and refreshing fluctuations of energy. In a trance, it was as if a giant phoenix was crying out in grief from the stone, shocking the soul. Tear-stained phoenix bloodstone. It was a kind of rare and unparalleled divine material that could only be found by chance. It was priceless, and it was one of the core materials for forging divine weapons and refining holy treasures. Although it was as small as an almond, if a saint saw it, he would be envious and coveted. Divine materials were extremely rare and almost impossible to find in today's world. The tear-stained phoenix bloodstone was even rarer among divine materials. There was no doubt that this was a great fortune. Lin Sun instantly noticed that there were many greedy eyes glancing at him nearby. He put away the tear-stained phoenix bloodstone without a trace, and then his black eyes swept around coldly. Suddenly, the experts in the distance trembled, and the greed in their hearts was extinguished. My God, this is a psychic ancient treasure! Chase it! On the branch of an ancient tree in the distance, a white jade banner turned into a bright light and was fleeing in the void. Behind it, many experts were chasing it with all their means. All of a sudden, the place was in chaos. Divine light crisscrossed, and all kinds of experts used their means to suppress the white jade banner. Everyone could see that this was destined to be a treasure born from the flower of ancient path. It was a great fortune. Lin Sun couldn't help but be tempted. Just as he was about to join in, he saw that in another area of the ancient tree, another fortune was born. It was a golden page of an ancient bronze book. However, as if it was psychic, it flew in the direction of the end of the branches of the ancient tree. Behind it, a group of powerhouses was in hot pursuit. At this moment, above and below the green lamp tree, bronze flower buds bloomed one after another. They shone brightly and then condensed into fruits. However, these were not ordinary fruits. They were fortunes one after another, psychic ancient treasures, or mysterious inheritances. There were even some strange things, all of them magical and extraordinary. The powerhouses distributed in different areas of the green lamp tree seemed to have gone crazy at this moment, and they used all their means to compete. Killing and chasing were intense. Shouts, roars, and sounds of slaughter resounded endlessly between the heavens and the earth. The towering ancient path's green lantern tree suddenly became chaotic. Fortune after fortune descended like rain, stimulating every prodigy's eyes to turn red. My God! Is this a peerless king medicine? It actually grew feet and wings, and is running wildly in the void. A cry of surprise sounded. A white ginseng was running wildly in the void. It was like a dwarf old man, with verdant leaves on the top of its head, dense roots turned into a pair of feet, and a pair of illusory wings grew on its back. It was magical to the extreme. A ginseng seemed to have a life of its own, and it was running wildly in panic. That scene could absolutely be said to be miraculous and astounding. There was no doubt that it was a peerless king medicine that had lived for countless years and had long been psychic. Such a peerless king medicine could hardly be found in the world today. It was too rare. If it was seen by the old monsters of the king's boundary, they would definitely fight for it at all costs. Chase it! The powerhouses shouted, and their eyes were red as if they had gone crazy. However, the speed of the psychic white ginseng was extremely fast, as if it was teleporting in the void. It ran here and there, and it was impossible to catch up for a while. Clatter! Lin Sun also took action. He waved the blue crystal chain, seized the opportunity, and suddenly swept towards the psychic white ginseng. A shocking scene occurred. The chain flashed through the body of the psychic white ginseng, but it couldn't imprison it, as if its body was invisible. But the more it was like this, the more Lin Sun's eyes lit up. What a treasure! Boom! He attacked with all his strength and tried to stop the movement of the psychic white ginseng with the hegemonic prohibition, but he didn't expect that this magical Taoist method was ineffective against the psychic white ginseng. Other powerhouses also attacked and displayed various means to compete for it, but in the end they all failed. It was as if the psychic white ginseng had been invulnerable to all magic and was extremely magical. Damn it, is this old ginseng a spirit? A powerhouse was so angry that he cursed anxiously. Some other powerhouses were also shocked. A peerless treasure was right in front of them, but they couldn't seize it. Instead, they were played around by it. This was too shocking. Lin Sun was slightly depressed as well. The most hateful thing was that the spiritual ginseng that looked like a dwarf actually grinned with a mocking smile, and its eyes were full of provocation and disdain. This won't do. I give up. Some powerhouses were angry to the point of turning around and leaving to seize other fortunes. They didn't want to waste any more time on this old ginseng. After all, time was equivalent to fortunes. Who was willing to waste it? Lin Sun didn't give up. He had noticed that this old ginseng had intelligence. It seemed to be fleeing, but it was obviously playing tricks on them. Obviously, it thought that no one could subdue it, so it dared to provoke them so unscrupulously. However, Lin Sun had his own means. He was determined in his heart that when he caught this hateful old stick, he would definitely marinate it. Whoosh! The old ginseng flickered in the void. It noticed Lin Sun, who was chasing after it. A mocking smile hung on its old face, and its complacent attitude of "What can you do to me?" was extremely hateful. It even deliberately played tricks on Lin Sun, flying in front of him from time to time. When Lin Sun raised his hand to catch it, its wings flapped behind it, and it swiftly drifted away. Lin Sun was furious at its shameless behavior. Gradually, there were fewer and fewer powerhouses chasing after the old ginseng. Most of them had completely given up and realized that such a peerless treasure wasn't something they could capture. Before long, only Lin Sun was left chasing after the old stick on the divine tree. Many powerhouses had strange expressions on their faces. Demon God Lin was going to waste his time with that infuriating old stick, but this was also good. It saved Demon God Lin the trouble of competing with them for other fortunes. Lin Sun could chase after it by himself. The powerhouses were gloating. They didn't think Lin Sun could succeed, and most of his efforts would be in vain. It didn't take long for Lin Sun to reach the top of the ancient tree. Along a very wide branch, he unknowingly rushed into the clouds. The old stick seemed to be a little tired. It looked at Lin Sun with a speechless expression. It seemed that it didn't expect Lin Sun to be so stubborn that he would exhaust himself to death. Then, it sneered and continued to flash. Occasionally, it seized the opportunity to appear behind Lin Sun and kick him hard on the back. Even though it was very weak and didn't cause any harm to Lin Sun at all, it was too humiliating. The dignified demonic god Lin had been kicked by the foot of an old herb, and if news of this were to spread, it would surely become an enormous joke. Whoosh! Suddenly, the old stick rushed over again, stretched out his foot, and kicked Lin Sun's back hard from behind with a complacent smile on his face. But at this moment, Lin Sun suddenly turned around and gnashed his teeth, saying, "Old stick, I've put up with you for a long time." The old stick was stunned for a moment, and then he gave a silent mocking smile, thinking that Lin Sun was going crazy because of his anger. This gave him an indescribable satisfaction. Chapter 9:14. The pagoda was actually the color of a kind of ancient jade glass, but the dense luster showed a kind of brilliant gold, which looked magnificent. Although it was only the size of a palm, it was not difficult to see that this pagoda was extremely wonderful. The pagoda was octagonal and divided into 8 parts, and each part formed a world of its own with patterns of the sun, moon, mountains and rivers, the sky and the earth, the stars, the ancient gods, and so on. It was like a trace of the ancient world was branded on the pagoda, and it had a kind of majestic aura that could accommodate the ages. Unfortunately, the pagoda was damaged. The top of the pagoda was originally engraved with Taoist characters, but now only an incomplete and blurred word, Wu, remained. This was the wordless pagoda. The most mysterious treasure in Lin Sun's hands once contained a Taoist poem related to the mystery of Mount Mind, and its origin could not be investigated. Suddenly, the old cudgel seemed to realize that something was wrong. The smile on his old face froze, and he was a little frightened. He was about to run away. Want to run away? It's too late. As he spoke, a dark golden light suddenly swept out of the wordless pagoda, and like a waterfall, it gently rolled up in the void and imprisoned the old cudgel. The old cudgel was so shocked that his whole body surged with bright light, but no matter how he struggled, it was of no use. His old face was full of horror, and he was finally dragged into the wordless pagoda. Boom! On the first floor of the pagoda, the dark golden light suppressed the old cudgel. Realizing that he was in danger, the old cudgel showed a pitiful expression and begged for mercy. He sent out a wisp of spiritual awareness. Young friend, calm down. Calm down. It's all a misunderstanding. Lin Sun's eyes narrowed and his heart was shocked. This peerless king medicine had intelligence. Immediately, he sneered, weren't you having fun just now? Why don't you laugh now? Instead, you start to beg for mercy? Just now, along the way, the old cudgel repeatedly provoked him with a mocking and hateful smile, which made Lin Sun, who had a good temper, furious. If it weren't for the fact that the old cudgel was a peerless king medicine and not an enemy, he would have strangled the old cudgel to death. Young friend, I'm a spirit root of dark Parasol Mountain, and I've never done anything that goes against reason or nature. I was just playing with you earlier, and I absolutely have no ill intentions. I hope young friend can be magnanimous and forgive me this time. The old club spoke pitifully. Don't even think about it. Lin Sun's words were resolute. It would be a reckless waste of God's gift if he didn't squeeze it dry and eat it up. Motherf *Ker brat, are you really going to fight to the death? Let me tell you. Back when I was on the Azure Parasol Mountain, I was a well-known and ruthless character. I had countless disciples and grand disciples, and even those saints had to respect me. You little bastard, you're nothing. I'll give you a chance to let me go. Don't make a big mistake, otherwise no one in this world can save you. Suddenly, the old club who was begging for mercy changed his expression. He put his hands on his waist and cursed loudly like a hooligan. The change happened so fast that Lin Sun was slightly stunned. He didn't expect that the old cudgel had 2 faces. Boom! What answered the old club was a strand of dark gold Tao light that smashed down fiercely onto his body like a whip, striking him to the point he howled loudly and cursed with all sorts of filthy words. F***ck your ancestors. Ouch, it hurt so much, F***ck. This was not a peerless king herb, but an old hooligan. In the end, the old club was so suppressed that tears almost flowed out of his eyes. He breathed weakly and stopped cursing. But he was still very unconvinced. He gnashed his teeth and said like a tough old hooligan, just you wait, just you wait. Then it lay there stiffly motionless. At this time, he was like an old herb, and his white body exuded a strong fragrance of medicine. Lin Sun really wanted to cut off a piece of it and have a taste of it. This guy is psychic and intelligent. I don't know how long he has lived. Maybe he knows some secrets about Dark Parasol Mountain, so I'm not in a hurry to deal with him. While thinking, Lin Sun withdrew his spiritual awareness and put away the wordless pagoda. At this time, he was standing on the ancient path lamp tree, which was extremely high. Its branches towered into the clouds, surrounded by purple clouds and mist. There was no one nearby. Below, there were still fierce sounds of battle. A group of strong practitioners were fighting for different fortunes. The battle was extremely bloody, and some strong practitioners died from time to time. It was too tragic. Those that were able to step foot on the ancient path's green lantern tree were all top geniuses of the younger generation, and the loss of every one of them was no less than a heavy blow to an orthodoxy. But now, in order to fight for the fortunes, no one cared about these things. They were fighting desperately. This was the struggle for the Great Tao. The so-called fortunes were often accompanied by blood and killing. Boom! Suddenly, there was a fierce sound of fighting in the purple mist in the distance. Lin Sun spread his spiritual awareness and instantly noticed that it was Mu Jianting and Lei Qianjun, the two peerless figures, who were fighting. They were fighting for an animal skin scroll, which was fluttering in the void with green divine brilliance. Vaguely, there was a deafening sound coming from the animal skin scroll. There was no doubt that this must be a mysterious ancient inheritance. No wonder Mu Jianting and Lei Qianjun would fight for it. Even Lin Sun was a little excited. With the sound of Tao and the divine brilliance, it could be imagined how extraordinary the inheritance recorded in this animal skin scroll was. But in the end, Lin Sun held back and did not fight for it. He had no grievances with these two people. Besides, there were other fortunes on the ancient path lamp tree. It was not worthwhile to get involved at this time. Lin Sun decided to go to other places to have a look. However, just as he turned around and was about to leave, a horrible aura suddenly attacked him. Boom! It was a Taoist sword with pine patterns. It was as brilliant as the sun, vast and bright, and wrapped in the power of heaven and earth. It chopped down with boundless terror. Almost subconsciously, Lin Sun dodged to one side. But at the same time, a thick long stick entwined with terrible thunder and lightning broke through the sky, with the power to crush mountains and rivers and destroy the universe. There was no way to avoid it. This kind of attack came too fast, and the cooperation was extremely tacit, as if they had already known where Lin Sun would dodge to. Tut! At this dangerous moment, Lin Sun's voice sounded like spring thunder, and a layer of golden sound wave rippled out. This was the profound meaning of Puzeo's roar. But different from the past, the golden sound wave rippled suddenly turned into a dense restriction, and a phantom of Bashya appeared. Its 4 hooves stepped in the air and restricted this area. This was Bashya prohibition. 2 completely different kinds of secret arts were perfectly combined by Lin Sun's roar and released at this moment. The thunder and lightning long stick that broke through the sky suddenly showed a trace of stagnation, as if it had fallen into a swamp, and its speed was slowed down. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Lin Sun's figure suddenly disappeared and swept to the distance like a ghost. Boom! The Taoist sword with pine patterns chopped down, making the void where Lin Sun originally stood explode, showing a state of destroying nothingness. Crack! The thunder and lightning long stick got rid of the restraint and smashed on the ground, bursting out thousands of dazzling sparks. The ground was made of ancient tree branches, densely covered with restriction. If it was in the outside world, the power of this stick alone could crush a mountain. It could be imagined that if Lin Sun's reaction was a little slower, he would definitely be attacked by the sword and the stick, fall into passive suppression, and even be seriously injured. Everything happened too fast, in the blink of an eye, but the danger was enough to make any practitioner tremble. At this time, he saw clearly the 2 strong practitioners who attacked him. "It's you." Lin Sun's black eyes were surging with cold light, and a touch of sullen and killing intent appeared on his handsome face. In the distance, Mu Jianting and Lei Qianjun came side by side. Just now they were fighting fiercely for the animal skin scroll, but now they were like brothers and feet, united together. Lin Sun didn't need to think to know that the battle between the two was obviously a pretense to deceive him. Their real intention was to kill him when he was unprepared. This made Lin Sun's heart surge with uncontrollable killing intent. He had just decided to leave, unwilling to get involved, thinking that there was no enmity between him and these two, and it was not worthwhile to incur enmity for the sake of fighting for the fortune. But in the blink of an eye, they joined forces to attack him, and they were incomparably ruthless, obviously intending to kill him with one strike. Demon God Lin is worthy of his reputation. Just this kind of reaction is amazing. Mu Jianting clapped his hands and praised. He was dressed in a Taoist robe, his hair coiled into a bun, and he looked very handsome. It is indeed surprising. Lei Qianjun was tall and handsome, his beard and hair fluttering in the wind, giving off an oppressive aura. Why? Lin Sun's voice was cold. To learn from each other, Mu Jianting said with a smile. Yes, to learn from each other. Lei Qianjuan's eyes flashed with cold lightning. Looking at their expressions, Lin Sun knew that it was impossible to get an answer from them. Even if he asked, they would definitely not tell him. But the more it was like this, the more intense Lin Sun's killing intent became. All along the way, he'd been constantly on guard against Yu Lingkong, Sha Luchan, Zhongli Wuji, Qing Lianer and Zhua Quanglun. He'd never imagined that Mu Jianting, these two peerless geniuses, would target him as well. No matter what the reason was, their actions just now had crossed Lin Sun's bottom line. Learn from each other? Lin Sun's expression was indifferent and completely expressionless. He took a step forward, and an incomparably terrifying divine light surged out of his body, bright like the sun. In an instant, his aura changed. He was like a demon, and the qi in his body was boiling, reaching an unprecedented peak state. All right, I'll learn from each other. Lin Sun's black hair fluttered in the wind, and his aura was as deep as an abyss. A torrent of killing intent burst out of his body and enveloped the entire area. Mu Jianting and Lei Qianjuan's pupils constricted at the same time. Sensing the change in Lin Sun's aura, they looked at each other and attacked together as if they had a tacit understanding. Swoosh! A dazzling sword light soared into the sky. It was magnificent and vast, and it caused the heavens and the earth to change color. Mu Jianting's clothes fluttered in the wind, and he was like a king of swordsmanship. His murderous aura shocked the world, and he attacked Lin Sun without hesitation. Boom! On the other side, a cold smile appeared on the corner of Lei Qianjuan's mouth. He picked up the thunderbolt rod and strode in the air like a fierce tiger coming out of the mountains. His aura was violent and ostentatious. Chapter 9:15. Dang! Lin Sun took a step forward while the might of his fist was dazzling like a waterfall, and it pressed down upon space as it collided head-on with the pine-striped Dao sword that slashed down, causing deafening rumbling to erupt. Amidst the explosion of divine radiance, the power of the pine-veined Taoist sword was forcefully dispersed. Such powerful strength! Mu Jianting's eyes focused. At the same time, a phantom of a divine beast with a height of more than 30 meters emerged behind Lin Sun. Like pushing the sun and the moon, it fiercely collided with the thunder cudgel on the other side. Boom! It was as if a volcano had erupted, causing the heavens and earth to tremble. Lei Qianjuan's palm felt numb as his blood surged. He was also a little surprised. When he really fought with Lin Sun, he found that Lin Sun's strength was far stronger than he had expected. Kill! Mu Jianting's Taoist robe fluttered while his imposing aura was like a sword, and it was fierce to the extreme. His pine-striped Tao was suffused with the energy of yin and yang, and when he slashed out with his sword, the sword qi emanated a black and white color that revealed the scene of a dragon and a tiger intersecting, yin and yang complementing each other, and it was boundlessly terrifying. Whoosh! 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 In an instant, dense black and white sword qi crisscrossed together like a dazzling net of swords that enveloped the surroundings. This was the method of a peerless figure. Standing at the peak of the reincarnation developing realm, they far surpassed their peers and were incomparably dazzling. Lin Sun was not afraid. He rushed forward without dodging. With his black hair flying in the air, he ran the 9 strikes of shaking heaven and the 9 changes of calamity dragon to fight head-on. For a time, the space here exploded into pieces. It was like primeval divine mountains were colliding, and thunderous rumbling erupted. All sorts of terrifying phenomena appeared like tidewater, and the dazzling divine radiance caused heaven and earth to dim down. In just a short while, the two of them had exchanged dozens of blows. In the end, Mu Jianting was shaken to the point of collapse. A python dragon formed by the fist energy soared into the sky and knocked him flying. It was so uncomfortable that he almost coughed up blood. How can this guy be so strong? Mu Jianting was slightly bewildered in his heart. Since he was in the spring and autumn pavilion, he'd been paying attention to Lin Sun's battles. Even when he started participating in the 5th level of the Dao discussion, he'd similarly taken Lin Sun to be an important opponent and hadn't dared be careless. But he still didn't expect the other party to be so terrifying. Rumble. On the other side, Lei Qianjun held the lightning rod in his hand as he smashed it down, sweeping through the world and destroying the 5 elements with an extremely mighty and ferocious aura. However, before long, he was also pushed back by Lin Sun's punch. His face changed slightly, and he became more vigilant and dignified. Both of them glanced at each other and saw the surprise in each other's hearts. After that, both of them attacked at practically the exact same time, and they exerted their full strength. After a short test, they had completely understood that neither of them could defeat Lin Sun in a one-on-one situation. Only by joining hands and exerting all their strength could they suppress Lin. Rumble. For a time, the place rumbled incessantly like a landslide or tsunami. The terrifying commotion quickly attracted the attention of many experts. Be good. Mu Jianting and Luo Yunyang are actually working together to deal with Fiend God Lin. Someone drew a cold gasp as he revealed a look of shock. This was definitely a peerless battle, a battle between peerless figures that was rarely seen in the world. What crime did Fiend God Lin commit this time to actually provoke 2 peerless figures to deal with him? Doesn't he have too many enemies? There were also many experts who were stunned, finding this hard to believe. Previously, they had all seen that Fiend God Lin was bound to suffer an unimaginable blow in front of the green lamp tree. But they had not expected that in addition to peerless figures like Yu Lingkong, Sha Luchan, Zhongli Wuji, Qing Lianer and Zhuo Quanglan, even Mu Jianting and Lei Qianjun had joined hands to deal with Fiend God Lin. Wasn't this a lot of enemies? Humph. If Fiend God Lin was the successor of some ancient orthodoxy, would those peerless figures dare to bully him like this? What trouble caused by Fiend God Lin? I think it's those guys who want to snatch Fiend God Lin's fortune and holy treasures. There were also people who were indignant on Lin Sun's behalf. At this time, some of the fortunes born on the green lamp tree had been snatched away, and some had fled as if they were psychic, disappearing without a trace. However, the heroes did not give up, because there were still many bronze flower buds on the green lamp tree that had yet to bloom. They were all waiting. But they did not expect to witness such a peerless battle at this time. More and more experts were alarmed, paying attention to this confrontation. Boom! The battle became more and more intense. Lin Sun's whole body was steaming, looking extremely powerful and disdainful. Even in the face of the 2 peerless figures' attacks, he did not retreat, but chose to fight them head-on. At this moment, he seemed like a fiend god. His figure was otherworldly, and his entire body was covered in dazzling light, causing him to seem like a sun that was teleporting. Mu Jianting and Lei Qianjun were not inferior. Both of them showed their combat power far beyond their peers, and they had mastered ancient Taoism. One was like a sword master and the other was like a thunder god. Although their momentum was different, they were both terrifying. Clang! A sword came from the east, blooming with peerless sharpness. But before it could get close, it was smashed by Lin Sun's fist. In the rain of light, Mu Jianting had to dodge. Celestial sphere suppression. Lei Qianjun shouted. He split the sky with his cudgel, and the thunder danced wildly. With the power to suppress and kill in all directions, he rushed towards Lin Sun. Lin Sun's cold eyes flashed with lightning, and he was incomparably brave. When he confronted Lei Qianjun, his fist force was like a landslide and a tsunami, pushing out horizontally with an unparalleled spirit. Between the two of them, multicolored light soared into the sky, and spirit chi surged. Astral wind and Taoist light wreaked havoc, crushing and collapsing the void. It was obvious how terrifying they were. During this process, Mu Jianting used his sword intent to kill, and he cooperated with Lei Qianjun to a tacit understanding. This kind of confrontation was extremely dangerous. Taoism raged like a flood, and divine splendor covered the sky and earth, making one's heart tremble. Celestial sphere suppression. Lei Qianjun shouted and rushed over again. His majestic figure was filled with dazzling lightning, and the long cudgel in his hand was wrapped in thousands of thunderstorms and arcs of lightning. It was as if a lightning tribulation had descended. Lin Sun used his fist force to meet Lei Qianjun's attack head-on. His fist force combined all the profundities of the 9 strikes of shaking heaven, and it contained the Tao of water. It presented a kind of earth-shaking and all-conquering might. With a bang, Lei Qianjun's attack was resolved once again. At this moment, Lin Sun had already rushed towards Mu Jianting, who was on the other side. He was extremely powerful. Lei Qianjun's gaze was ice-cold, and gloominess appeared between his brows. Up until now, not only was he unable to kill Lin Sun, he couldn't even suppress and deal with him. This made him feel solemn, and at the same time, indescribable anger. As a peerless figure, it was already very shameful for him to join forces with Mu Jianting, but even under such circumstances, they still couldn't kill Lin Sun. This was simply a disgrace. Celestial sphere suppression. He roared angrily, and the long cudgel in his hand swept up. He charged again, and the heaven and earth trembled. One after another, dazzling thunder and lightning marks appeared on his majestic body. They were the true profundities of the great way of thunderclap. Once they were displayed, tens of thousands of lightning bolts would appear. Indistinctly, the thunder was like the cry of the gods, shaking the 9 heavens and causing the wind and clouds in all directions to change. Without a doubt, this was an incomparably terrifying attack imprinted with the supreme secret profundities. It caused the void to tremble and be destroyed by the lightning. It should have been like this long ago. The corners of Lin Sun's mouth curled up, and he took up a stance in the void. He fused the 9 kinds of fist forces of the 9 strikes of shaking heaven into one fist and burst forth. Unexpectedly, this punch seemed to be ethereal, simple, and otherworldly. However, as soon as it was executed, the nearby space suddenly collapsed while rifts spread out, and it seemed as if it was unable to endure the might contained within this punch. The crowd was shocked, and they gasped, their scalps tingling. The battle between such peerless figures was simply despairing. Since Lin Sun had already reached the limit of the reincarnation developing realm, how could the others be his opponent? They would die if they went up. Dong! The fist force collided with the long cudgel. In the next moment, the crowd saw Lei Qianjun being violently sent flying. His figure staggered in the void and his face turned pale. On the other hand, Lin Sun seemed to be completely fine. He took advantage of this opportunity to rush forward, intending to suppress Lei Qianjun in one fell swoop. Demon God Lin is going against the natural order. Many powerhouses were dumbfounded. Lin Sun was attacked by 2 peerless figures, but he wasn't suppressed. Instead, he launched a counterattack, defeating Lei Qianjun forcefully, and was about to kill him. This was undoubtedly too astounding and unimaginable. Whoosh! However, before Lin Sun could attack, Mu Jianting had already swept over from the side. An ancient sword with pine patterns flowed with yin and yang, black and white qi, emitting a frightening luster. Yin and yang cut. Boom! The sword intent was like a waterfall, over 100 meters long. It tore open a shocking gap in the void and chopped straight at Lin Sun's head. Lin Sun turned around and struck out a Swanee seal. It was as if a divine mountain had descended from the heavens, and the divine beast Swanee sat on it, overlooking the world. Crack! Crack! The black and white sword intent was extremely sharp and peerless, but at this moment it was being suppressed by the Swanee seal, breaking inch by inch. At the same time, Lin Sun took a step forward, and the snow-white Swanee soared into the air. With a swing of its tail, it ruthlessly smashed Mu Jianting away. The crowd was shocked. Everyone looked lifeless, and their hearts trembled. They could imagine how terrifying demon god Lin was, but they didn't expect him to be this terrifying. What was unparalleled demonic might? That was it. He was unstoppable and had never been suppressed. Instead, he had defeated them one by one. He was ferocious and domineering to the extreme. Mu Jianting and Lei Qianjun weren't ordinary figures. Even among peerless figures, they could be considered the top, and they were even stronger than people like Sha Luchan. Normally, any one of them could sweep through a realm and be almost invincible in the reincarnation developing realm. But now, the two of them had attacked together, but they were actually defeated. In the distance, Mu Jianting was in a sorry state. His arm was bleeding, and his chest was almost torn apart. His face was pale, and the blood in his body was churning. He had the urge to cough up blood. On the other side, Lei Qianjun wasn't any better. The hand between his thumb and index finger that was holding the long rod was numb. If Mu Jianting hadn't stopped in time, the consequences would be unimaginable. Both of their expressions became solemn. They had roughly determined that demon god Lin had probably set foot on the legendary peerless path. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to possess such heaven-defying might. Boom! Lin Sun didn't give them a chance to catch their breath at all. His entire body rumbled with clear divine radiance, and it caused his imposing aura to shoot into the sky and fill the heavens and the earth. He revealed an unyielding and peerlessly powerful posture. Demon God Lin! Demon God Lin! Some experts muttered involuntarily when they witnessed this scene, and they were shocked to the point they didn't know how to describe it. Chapter 9:16. In the void, the fierce battle continued, but the situation had changed. Lin Sun, like a tiger out of its cage, pushed forward aggressively, suppressing the two peerless figures, Mu Jianting and Lei Qianjun. The crowd was shocked. They had never expected this scene before. It had a strong visual impact that they could hardly imagine. Do you remember that Demon Lin fought with Sha Luchan and Qing Lianer in front of the Pavilion of Spring and Autumn? Some powerhouses sighed with emotion. At that time, Qing Lianer was seriously injured and Sha Luchan was defeated. If Zhongli Wuji hadn't come to disturb them, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Everyone remembered and compared the battle in front of them. They found that there were some similarities. However, although Sha Luchan and Qing Lianer were also peerless figures, they were obviously inferior to Mu Jianting and Lei Qianjun in terms of combat power. But even so, Mu Jianting and Lei Qianjun were still suppressed by Lin Sun. At that time, Demon Lin had already shown the demeanor of a top peerless figure. Now, he is obviously different from that time. In the first test of Tao discussion, he obtained a 9-petal fire lotus, which means that he mastered a new kind of profound meaning and a peerless Taoist inheritance. During the second test of the Tao discussion, he seems to have seized the first in the extreme realm and obtained a special reward. There's no doubt that his combat strength has definitely undergone a tremendous transformation under the tempering of the extreme realm. In the Buddha Sea, he still chose to break through the realm in a dangerous situation. Although he was obstructed, he finally reached the middle level of reincarnation developing realm. You should know that for a peerless figure like Demon God Lin, his combat power will undergo a qualitative transformation and improvement every time his cultivation goes up a level. Otherwise, Sha Luchan would not have been defeated by Lin Sun in a single blow. He was so scared that he had to run away. A powerhouse analyzed Lin Sun's combat power with extreme calmness and wisdom, attracting the attention of many powerhouses. Similarly, during the soul lighting lamp test, Demon God Lin appeared to have gained nothing, but the soul strength he displayed was the best among his peers. Everyone knows that the soul is the key to seeing through life and death and forging one's Tao to become a king. For Demon God Lin's soul to be so powerful definitely means that he possesses unimaginable potential to become a king. And in the fifth test, the great Tao energy that Fiend Celestial Lin comprehended is definitely not as simple as the Vortex Great Tao. Otherwise, why would that ancient stone tablet self-destruct? This is unprecedented. This undoubtedly means that even if the power of the great Tao he grasps is not as great as that of Fairy Ji and the others, it is definitely unique. It is not something ordinary great Tao can compare to. When he spoke up to hear, all the experts felt as if they'd been enlightened. Now everyone ought to understand, right? The current Devil God Lin is completely different from before he participated in the Tao Discussion Lantern Gathering. His combat strength, cultivation, soul, and the energy of the Grand Tao he possesses has undergone a tremendous change. The experts' eyes were burning. Under such circumstances, I suspect that even leading figures like Fairy Ji or Yu Lingkong might not be able to suppress Fiend God Lin. Hiss! When they heard this judgment, there was a series of gasps in the vicinity. Many experts felt their hearts turn cold. Demon God Lin was already powerful to such an extent? They looked up and saw Lin Sun's handsome figure bathed in brilliant light on the battlefield. He was like a resplendent divine sun that shone with boundless light and divine might. Compared to him, be it Mu Jianting or Lei Qianjun, both of them appeared dim. They were being suppressed and constantly retreated, almost unable to raise their heads. Indeed, the experts felt complicated and indescribably shocked. The battle at that moment was like the sun and moon competing for brilliance, and Lin Sun was that unique and blazing sun. After being defeated once again, Mu Jianting finally could not hold it in and coughed up blood. His face was green and gloomy. There was an indescribable feeling of grievance and anger in his heart. Lin Sun's strength had exceeded his expectations and imagination time and time again, dealing him a huge blow. On the other side, Lei Qianjun was still resisting bitterly. Lin Sun had not used any treasures from beginning to end, but his fists were even more terrifying than peerless treasures. They were like landslides and tsunamis, grand and majestic, indestructible, and carried with them a terrifying oppressive force that seemed to be able to sweep through everything. This made Lei Qianjun wonder what kind of terrifying scene would happen if Lin Sun used treasures to fight. Dong! Another punch, sparkling and translucent, with an ancient and ethereal aura, smashed onto the lightning rod. Lei Qianjun's entire body trembled, his wrist almost breaking. His entire body was fiercely pressed down and he almost smashed onto the ground. Go! Mu Jianting shouted from afar, turned around and dashed into the distance. The experts were stunned. They did not expect that Mu Jianting, the successor of the Jade Void Temple, a peerless figure famous throughout the West Hing boundary, would actually withdraw. This undoubtedly meant that he knew he could not turn the situation around, so he chose to retreat. Swoosh! Lei Qianjun did not hesitate either. He was extremely decisive. His figure flashed in the void like a bolt of lightning, and he moved a distance of thousands of meters horizontally. You were clamoring to learn from each other. Why do you want to leave before the fight is over? Lin Sun snorted coldly. He used the ice dragon steps and chased after them with all his strength. He had not used his killing moves before, not because he was lenient, but because he was vigilant and alert. He was very sure that Mu Jianting and Lei Qianjun must have a deadly weapon in their hands, which was enough to pose a fatal threat. So he had been waiting for them to reveal their true intentions. But he had never thought that such two peerless figures would choose to escape in full view of the public, regardless of their face and dignity. Obviously, they were still holding back, unwilling to reveal their trump cards at this time. Their purpose was also easy to guess. The battle of fate on the green lamp tree was not over yet, so neither of them wanted to reveal their trump cards prematurely. However, Lin Sun would not agree. He had been ambushed for no reason and was almost killed, but Mu Jianting said it was just a fight. How could Lin Sun not be angry? Were they bullying him because he did not dare to kill? Whoosh! In an instant, Lin Sun was as fast as lightning, chasing them with all his strength. Chase. The crowd could see that Lin Sun intended to fight to the death. How could they miss such a shocking fight? They all followed after him. It wasn't that these powerhouses liked to watch a show, but the remaining bronze flower buds on the green path lamp tree didn't show any signs of blooming. Otherwise, they wouldn't have given up on the opportunity they were fighting for just to watch a show. The green lamp tree was towering in the sky. The higher it was, the thicker it was. Its branches extended to the depths of the clouds, like a big maze. The purple clouds were misty, as if they were passing through the upper world. Mu Jianting and Lei Qianjun escaped extremely fast, but they could not escape from Lin Sun's spiritual awareness. In terms of speed, Lin Sun, who was operating ice dragon steps with all his strength, was even faster. Why are you two running away? Come on, let's continue the fight. Lin Sun looked indifferent, his voice full of sarcasm and coldness. Mu Jianting and Lei Qianjun gnashed their teeth with hatred. They had been suppressed by Lin Sun before, which made them feel humiliated and angry. Now they were ridiculed by Lin Sun, which made them feel a little embarrassed. You are peerless figures. I, Lin Sun, have no enmity with you, and have never participated in your action to fight for the fate. But you sneak attacked me in such a despicable way. Don't you feel ashamed? Since you want to be my enemy, leave your heads to atone for your sins. Lin Sun's voice resounded through the wilderness. He was not only speaking to Mu Jianting and Lei Qianjun, but also to other strong practitioners. You are courting death. Lei Qianjun was furious, and Mu Jianting's face was livid. I am courting death? Haha, then why are you running away? Lin Sun laughed, his expression becoming colder. His speed was extremely fast, and he was gradually approaching the two. At the same time, he was vigilant. In order to prevent the two from using their trump cards at all costs, he was also prepared to deal with them with all his strength. Boom! However, before he could catch up with the two, a sudden change occurred. One flag after another appeared in the air from all directions. There were a total of 108 of them, and they covered the sky and earth. In an instant, Lin Sun felt as if he was in a cage. His pupils suddenly shrank. Spiritual tattoo formation. Clatter. The densely packed flags swayed, releasing dense spiritual tattoos like tides, obscure and abstruse, which covered this area. In an instant, the scene in front of Lin Sun changed abruptly. There was nothing in all directions, and he couldn't find any way out. Even his spiritual awareness was isolated, and he couldn't perceive the outside world. This is a forbidden formation of kingcraft. Lin Sun realized the situation in an instant. As a grandmaster of spiritual tattoos, he had been immersed in spiritual formations for many years, and he could even judge that the 108 flags set up in the formation were all rare, ancient formation treasures. This was a kind of treasure passed down from ancient times. It was refined with obscure and magical formation patterns. Once they were used, they could echo with each other and instantly turn into a spiritual tattoo formation with unfathomable power. The forbidden formation of kingcraft was even more terrible. To set up this formation, at least a set of ancient formation treasures with the power of kingcraft was needed. Such a large formation could even trap and kill the Kingcraft realm and refine a part of the world. It's really a big deal. In order to deal with me, they even used the forbidden formation of Kingcraft. Lin Sun's dark eyes were deep, and his look was terrifyingly cold. He realized that this was a trap carefully prepared in advance, waiting for him to jump into it. At the same time, Lin Sun finally understood why Mu Jianting and Lin Sun wanted to escape. The reason why they didn't use their trump cards was obviously that they wanted to act as bait to trap and kill him in this formation. In other words, this formation was their trump card. What a cruel scheme! Understanding all this, Lin Sun also felt a chill in his heart. In order to deal with him, these peerless figures used absolutely cruel and decisive means. This made Lin Sun's heart full of hatred, and he almost couldn't control his killing intent. But soon, Lin Sun calmed down, spread out his spiritual awareness, and began to perceive the formation with all his strength. Chapter 9:17. Dense and obscure spiritual tattoos surged like a tide, flickering with a terrifying divine brilliance. Outside the Royal Way forbidden formation, Mu Jianting and Lei Qianjun stood side by side with gloominess on their faces. Although they had trapped Lin Sun, they still felt humiliated and angry when they thought of the previous battle. This demon god Lin is just SOSO. Accompanied by a chuckle, a group of figures walked out from the nearby area. It was Sha Luchan, Zhongli Wuji, Qing Lianer, and the others. Their faces carried a sliver of complacency that was difficult to conceal. They each held a formation disc in their hands, and different formation discs were inscribed with different spiritual inscriptions. They radiated with obscure ripples as they controlled the Royal Way forbidden formation nearby. It's all thanks to your help that we were able to lure Demon God Lin into the trap this time. Zhongli Wuji cupped his fists and said to Mu Jianting and Lei Qianjun. Don't mention it, Mu Jianting said indifferently, we just took what we needed. Zhongli Wuji said casually, Brother Mu, don't worry. We only wanted to kill Lin Sun. As for the fortune and treasure on him, they naturally belong to you. Mu Jianting and Lei Qianjuan's expressions eased a lot. Obviously, they had planned this beforehand and cooperated secretly. Zhongli Wuji wanted to kill Lin Sun, while Mu Jianting and Lei Qianjun wanted the fortune and treasure on Lin Sun. Miss Lien, will there be any problems with this formation? Sha Luchan asked with a frown. He was a little worried. He was really shocked by Lin Sun's combat strength, which made him feel an indescribable fear towards Lin Sun. Don't worry, this formation is called the King's Four Symbols. It's formed by 108 four symbols war flags personally refined by our ancestors. Once trapped in it, it'll be like a wild dragon locked in prison. Even a king realm old monster won't be able to escape. Qing Lianer said resolutely with a trace of pride in her clear eyes. She knew the power of this Royal Way forbidden formation very well. Everyone was relieved. This time Demon God Lin can't escape. Sha Luchan's voice was resentful and complacent. There was a sense of satisfaction from revenge. If it wasn't for the fact that we have to seize the time to fight for the great fortune, we wouldn't need to trouble Miss Lien, to use this formation. I could teach him a lesson in minutes. Zhongli Wuji looked proud and aloof. The moment he said that, Mu Jianting and Lei Qianjun felt a burst of disdain and anger in their hearts. If Demon God Lin was so weak, how could he have suppressed them to the point where they couldn't even lift their heads? Yet, Zhongli Wuji had actually said such words. With such a comparison, didn't it mean that the two of them were no match for Zhongli Wuji? Mu Jianting said impatiently, cut the crap and kill him quickly. Time is of the essence. The remaining bronze flower buds on the green path lamp tree would bloom soon, and he didn't want to waste any more time. Brother Mu is right. As Zhongli Wuji said that, he, Sha Luchan, Qing Lianer, and the others began to move, each of them operating an array disc. Boom! Divine radiance filled the air, and spirit patterns surged. The king's four symbols' grand formation seemed as if it had awakened from its slumber, and a strand of killing intent that shot into the sky spread out and shook the wind and clouds. In an instant, a white tiger patrolled in the sky above the grand formation, a vermilion bird fluttered about, an azure dragon coiled up, and a black tortoise raised its head. Layer upon layer of grand phenomena were suffused with fluctuations of restrictions that were sufficient to terrify King Realm experts. My God! What sort of world-shocking grand formation is this? Its aura is too terrifying. Can Fiend God Lin survive being within it? Many experts had rushed over from afar, and when they witnessed all of this, they were shocked to the point their hearts trembled, and their expressions changed drastically. This is a trap set up by a group of peerless figures to kill Fiend God Lin in one go. Someone noticed that Zhongli Wuji and the others were gathered together with Mu Jianting and Lei Qianjun outside the grand formation, and this was sufficient to prove everything. Fiend God Lin is doomed, many experts sighed in their hearts. What sort of peerless genius was Fiend God Lin? He had slaughtered his way up from the lower dimensions alone without anyone to rely on, and he'd stirred up a storm in the West Constant World by relying on his own strength to rise domineeringly amongst the younger generation. Such a peerless figure was about to die on the green path lamp tree, and others couldn't help but feel pity for him. It was another scene within the King's Way restriction formation. As the grand formation operated, rolling spiritual tattoos poured down like the Milky Way, drowning the entire grand formation. Lightning flashed, thunder roared, fire raged, water swept, and rocks tumbled. It was a scene of doomsday and calamity. If it were other practitioners, they would have already given up all hope, for there was no way to avoid it. They could only wait for death like trapped beasts. But in Lin Sun's eyes, all these attacks were transformed from different formations. Although they were obscure, mysterious, and extremely terrifying, they were not without flaws. Swish! At the moment when the grand formation operated, Lin Sun also moved. He was as fast as lightning, flashing frequently in the grand formation. Crack! The dazzling thunderstorm seemed to be irresistible and despairing, but Lin Sun stretched out his arm and pointed lightly in the void. Instantly, the thunderstorm that covered the heavens and the earth seemed to have been pierced through, and it suddenly collapsed and vanished. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Lin Sun had already dodged. It was an attack transformed from the raging thunder formation, controlled by the power of White Tiger, one of the four symbols, with astonishing killing power. But for Lin Sun, it was a piece of cake to break this kind of formation. His title of Grandmaster of Spiritual Tattoos was not just for show. In Xiao Empire, even the old monsters of King Realm took the initiative to come to Lin Sun, hoping that he could help them refine armors with spiritual tattoos. Under such circumstances, how could Lin Sun be afraid? Perhaps this forbidden formation of King Realm could kill the old monsters of King Realm, but it didn't include him. Bang! In the raging sea of molten lava, Lin Sun took a step, and the ice dragon rushed into the depths of the sea of fire. Then the sea of fire collapsed like a piece of paper. This was the formation of mystical Son of Fire, controlled by the power of Vermilion Bird, one of the four symbols, with the power to burn the sky and destroy the earth. But at the same time, Lin Sun found the weakness of the formation at a glance and easily cracked it. In the following time, Lin Sun resolved all the murderous tribulations in the grand formation, which was powerful enough to trap and kill a King Realm expert. Do you really think you can kill me in this way? Lin Sun's black eyes swept across the sky like lightning. It was a vast expanse of whiteness covered by the power of obscure spiritual tattoos, but he knew that they were peeping at his movements from there. You'd better wash your necks and wait. When I break the formation, I will take your heads. Lin Sun's words were calm, but cold and unparalleled killing intent was revealed. Then, Lin Sun withdrew his eyes, and his figure was suddenly covered with a layer of dreamy qi of Taowu and disappeared. Zhongli Wuji stiffened all over and his pupils contracted. At that moment, he seemed to feel that Lin Sun's eyes were looking at him from afar. What kind of eyes was that? They were calm and indifferent, like a black abyss, revealing endless killing intent. How could this be? On the other side, Sha Luchan, Qing Lianer and others also changed their faces. Like Zhongli Wuji, they felt that they were being locked by Lin Sun's eyes. Is there something wrong with this formation? Isn't it said that even the old monsters of King Realm will be trapped and killed in it? Sha Luchan couldn't help asking. This formation was personally refined by the ancestors of my Cyan Phoenix clan. How could there be any mistakes? This guy should also be proficient in spiritual tattoos, which is why he can turn danger into safety. Qing Liana frowned. In fact, she was also a little surprised. Not to mention a practitioner of reincarnation developing realm, even an old monster of King Realm couldn't be as relaxed as Lin Sun. The only explanation was that Lin Sun also had a superb attainment in spiritual tattoos. Everyone, it seems that we have to use our full strength. Qing Lianer gritted her teeth, and a ruthless look appeared in her clear eyes. Although it will consume a huge amount of spiritual energy, we have no other choice. Please protect us. Zhongli Wuji looked at Mu Jianting and Qing Lianer, and they nodded in agreement. Immediately, Zhongli Wuji and Qing Lianer no longer held back. They ran all their strength and manipulated the formation plate in their hands to the extreme. Boom! Inside the formation, the scene suddenly changed, becoming more and more terrifying. Moo! A green dragon rushed out of a vast green mountain range in the east. Its body coiled like a mountain, and it raised its head and roared, shaking the sky. Roar! In a black purgatory-like area in the west, a white tiger that was hundreds of meters long rushed out. Its whole body emitted a dazzling golden light like a sword, and its murderous intent shook the world. Whoosh! In a country of lava in the south, a vermilion bird spread its wings and soared into the sky. Its gorgeous wings scattered thousands of bright red flames, burning the void and incinerating the universe. Dong! In the vast land in the north, a black tortoise strode forward, its limbs like pillars supporting the sky. Every step it took caused the earth to collapse and everything to collapse. Vaguely, the formation emitted an ancient and obscure restrictive power, as if a king had descended, and it could suppress a world and sweep across the land. This was the real power of the Royal Way restrictive formation. If it was set up in the outside world, it could easily refine a city into ashes and raze thousands of miles of mountains and rivers to the ground. However, at this critical moment, Zhongli Wuji and the others suddenly found that Lin Sun's figure in the formation had disappeared. What happened? Zhongli Wuji's face darkened. Could it be that he has been erased? Sha Luchan was shocked and doubtful. He is still alive. Although we can't lock on to him, I can feel the power of the formation. He is hiding in it. Qing Lianer's clear eyes were cold and full of killing intent. Don't slack off. Otherwise, I'm afraid he will seize the opportunity and ruin all our efforts. Zhongli Wuji and the others were awestruck and didn't dare to be distracted. Mu Jianting and Lei Qianjun, who were nearby, were puzzled. Killing a reincarnation developing realm cultivator with this kind of monarch Dao restrictive formation was as easy as crushing an ant. But why did accidents keep happening when it was used against demon god Lin? Could it be that, did he have another trump card in his hand? In an instant the same thought came to their minds. Holy treasure! Only the power of a holy treasure could enable a young man like Lin Sun to persist in the Royal Way restrictive formation until now. Previously, when all kinds of news were spreading about Lin Sun's good fortune and possession of a holy treasure, the two were still a little skeptical. But now, they roughly concluded that the news was very likely to be true. At the thought of this, a burning greed emerged in their hearts uncontrollably. Compared with the fortune on the ancient path green lamp tree, the fortune hidden in demon god Lin's body was absolutely not small, and might even be even greater. Chapter 9:18. In the king's forbidden formation, Lin Sun's figure was shrouded by miasma qi, which made him transparent and even covered his breath. In his hand was a small bottle that was jade white and as thick as a thumb. It emanated rays of light that seemed like chaos, and it surged with strange fluctuations. The energy of the restrictions that surged over from all directions hadn't even approached when they were silently swallowed by the small bottle, and it was extremely miraculous. Infinity Bottle of Great Wei. Lin Sun's expression was a little strange. He was just inspired to test it, but he never thought that this magical bottle could actually contain the power of the spiritual formation restriction. He could clearly feel that the attacking power of the formation and the mystery and power contained in the spiritual tattoo formation were all contained in the small bottle intact. It's really a good treasure. It can not only swallow attacks and accumulate power, but also contain the power of the spiritual formation. It's really magical. Lin Sun was amazed. Infinity Bottle of Great Wei was a special reward obtained in the second test of Tao discussion, and it was also a strange treasure that was different from the world. But until now, Lin Sun hadn't dug out all its magical effect. Lin Sun suddenly noticed that as the small bottle swallowed more and more power, some obscure and strange Taoist patterns faintly emerged on its lustrous and translucent body. At the same time, the bottle began to heat up, buzzing and trembling. It seemed to be reaching saturation, as if the bottle was full of water and was about to overflow. However, when Lin Sun tried to control it with his spiritual power, the bottle suddenly stopped trembling and became stable, showing a cyan color. Its swallowing power became stronger. The inside of the bottle seemed to be infinite, and the surging prohibitions from all directions were all swallowed up like a whirlwind. Lin Sun was enlightened. Infinity Bottle of Great Wei didn't need to be controlled. On the contrary, to exert its power, the control of spiritual power was the key. Is he dead? Outside the king's forbidden formation, Sha Luchan was a little anxious, with sweat on his forehead. Although the power of the king's forbidden formation was extremely terrifying, it also consumed a lot of energy to control it. If it was controlled by a grandmaster of spiritual tattoos or a king's realm practitioner, it would be easy and handy. Although Sha Luchan and Qing Lian were peerless figures of the younger generation, they were only at the reincarnation developing realm. Even if they worked together to control the formation, they would not be able to endure it for too long. No. Qing Lian's beautiful countenance was also somewhat unsightly. Her breathing was slightly ragged and her complexion was somewhat pale. It seemed like she couldn't hold on much longer. How could this be? Zhongli Wuji's face turned gloomy, and an ominous premonition arose in his heart. This was a King Dao forbidden array. But why couldn't he kill a young man in the reincarnation development state? Qing Lian, are you trying to trick us? Why do I feel like my power is depleting faster and faster? San Flo Zhen roared. Shut up. Do you think I'm as sinister as that demon god Lin? Qing Lian frowned unhappily. Miss Lian, if this goes on, we won't even need a quarter of an hour. None of us will be able to hold on, and we will fall into a state of exhaustion. Zhongli Wuji took a deep breath and tried to calm himself down. Just hold on a little longer. Qing Lian didn't dare to guarantee anything, but she still gritted her teeth in the end. Then let's give it our all, Zhongli Wuji said in a low voice. Previously, when they saw Lin Sun trapped, they were wild with joy. But now, all of them had ugly expressions on their faces, and they were bewildered. It doesn't look good. Lei Qianjuan's cold eyes flashed with electricity. It's simple. This is a King Dao forbidden array. Only King Realm experts and spiritual rune grandmasters can fully unleash its power. Zhongli Wuji and the rest don't understand spiritual runes, and their strength is far inferior to King Realm experts. It's normal for them to make some mistakes. Mu Jianting explained calmly. Moreover, don't forget that demon god Lin has a saint artifact. How can he be killed so easily? What's going on? The experts watching from afar also realized that something was wrong. Normally, once the King Dao Forbidden Array was activated, life and death would be decided in an instant. But now, almost 10 minutes had passed, and there was no result. This was very abnormal. Could that King Dao Forbidden Array be a fake? Some experts were doubtful, but the words they said nearly made Qing Lian vomit blood. A fake? This was an ancient treasure personally refined by their Green Phoenix race's ancestor. It had existed for countless years. After causing such a huge commotion, it's like setting off a dud. Isn't this a little awkward? Someone mocked. Awkward? Awkward my ass. Sha Luchan was so angry that he wanted to kill someone. What the hell was this? They were killing Demon God Lin, not putting on a show. Heh, so many peerless figures, and even the King Dao Forbidden Array can't deal with a single Demon God Lin. Heh. The voice was eccentric, especially the laughter. It had an indescribable sense of mockery, sarcasm, and sarcasm. Instantly, Zhongli Wuji couldn't take it anymore. Killing intent shot out of his eyes, and he had the urge to strangle this person to death. Even Mu Jianting and Lei Qianjun frowned. The situation was getting out of hand. They could foresee how embarrassing it would be if Demon God Lin escaped death. "Everyone, do you need any help?" asked Mu Jianting. He did not wish to see such a great opportunity go to waste. If that happened, it would not only be a matter of embarrassment, but it would also attract Demon God Lin's counterattack. There would be endless trouble in the future. However, the moment he said that, Zhongli Wuji and company felt even more embarrassed. Did he think they couldn't do it? There's no need. We can resolve it ourselves. Zhongli Wuji and company swore inwardly as they circulated their strength to their limits. They could not hold on any longer. Lin soon acutely noticed that even though he circulated his soul power at full force, he could not control the great Tao immeasurable bottle. It was beginning to tremble again. So, without any hesitation, Lin soon put away the great Tao immeasurable bottle and stood up. He had decided to begin cracking the array. That fellow has appeared. Sha Luchan was already sweating from exhaustion and panting. However, he was soon overjoyed when he discovered Lin Sun. "Quick, surround him with all your might." Zhongli Wuji and company were also overjoyed. Lin Sun's appearance made them subconsciously believe that Lin Sun could not hold on any longer. Boom! The power of the Imperial Way restrictive array was becoming more and more terrifying. Divine light rumbled and the sound shook the world. Mu Jianting and the other powerhouses who were watching from afar also noticed the change in the situation. It seemed that the outcome was about to be decided. All of a sudden, everyone's hearts were in their throats. Look, the outcome is about to be decided. Far away, Yu Lingkong's lips curled into a smile as he whispered to Ji Xingyao next to him. A group of peerless figures have joined forces and used the Imperial Way restrictive array. Even if he wins, it will not be honorable. He will be laughed at by the outside world. Ji Xingyao's expression was tranquil and her tone was as cold as snow. In the battle of the Great Tao, one cannot deny that connections and background are also a powerful competitive force. Yu Lingkong smiled. But to truly rise and set foot above the Extinction King realm, he can only rely on himself. Ji Xingyao clearly could not agree with Yu Lingkong's viewpoint. "Miss Ji, you seem to not want to see him killed?" Yu Lingkong frowned imperceptibly. Ji Xingyao said indifferently, "If it were me, I would not use such a bullying method to kill my enemy. To put it simply, it would be an unfair victory." Yu Lingkong clapped his hands and praised, "Miss Ji, you are so bold." But at this moment, Ji Xingyao's expression froze. Her clear eyes were filled with surprise as she looked into the distance. Yu Lingkong was displeased to be ignored by Ji Xingyao. But when he looked in the direction of Ji Xingyao's gaze, he was also shocked. His eyes shone with a terrifying luster. Boom! The fluctuation of the Imperial Way restrictive array became more and more terrifying. It was like a living furnace in chaos that would refine everything in the world. Zhongli Wuji and the others looked grim and excited. Since demon god Lin had appeared, it was time to end it. Mu Jianting and Lei Qianjun were ready. They were waiting to kill Lin Sun, and then they would rush up to seize the fortune and the saint treasure. Is demon god Lin really unable to hold on? The expressions of some powerhouses in the distance changed and their emotions were complicated. It is amazing that he can persist in the Imperial Way restrictive array until now. It is rare in the world. Even if he is killed, his heroic name will definitely resound in the Western Hing territory. What is that? Soon, many powerhouses were surprised to find that the Imperial Way restrictive array was still running, but Lin Sun's figure had appeared outside the array. Demon god Lin, you're dead this time. Sha Luchan laughed. Although he was panting and most of his strength had been consumed, he felt unprecedented joy and excitement at this moment. Lin Sun's death was undoubtedly equivalent to washing away all the shame he had suffered before. Really? Of course, if he can survive, I will take my head and give it to him. Speaking of this, Sha Luchan was stunned and suddenly realized that something was wrong. Then he jumped 3 feet high and exclaimed, You, when did you come out? I just came out. Next to him, Lin Sun smiled brightly. He put his hands behind his back, and his whole body was surrounded by a dazzling radiance. Sha Luchan's expression suddenly became very interesting. There was astonishment, anger, humiliation, and a kind of unspeakable panic on his face. No matter how he racked his brains, he never imagined that Lin Sun could casually walk out of the Imperial Way restrictive array. Zhongli Wuji and Qing Lian in the distance were completely dumbfounded as well, and they felt as if they were hallucinating. This was too bizarre. That was the Imperial Way restrictive array, so how could such a thing happen? It wasn't just them, even the powerhouses who had been watching from afar were dumbfounded. What the hell was this? Bang! Before they could react, Lin Sun had already attacked brazenly. His figure rushed out and appeared in front of Sha Luchan in an instant. His palm and fingers gathered into a fist, and it pressed down fiercely like a mountain descending from the heavens. Bang! Chapter 9:19. Previously, when Lin Sun was trapped in the Imperial Way Forbidden Formation, all the powerhouses thought that it was only a matter of time before Lin Sun died. After all, it was an Imperial Way Forbidden Formation controlled by a group of peerless figures. It was terrifying enough to make any powerhouse despair. Under such circumstances, who could have imagined that the situation would be reversed? The most inconceivable thing was that the Imperial Way Forbidden Formation was still in operation. It was obviously not damaged, but Lin Sun walked out of it unscathed. It was too sudden. Caught off guard, no one was able to react immediately. Only when Sha Luchan was killed with a punch did the powerhouses who had fallen into a daze come to their senses. Blood splattered. Sha Luchan was a peerless figure, but he couldn't withstand a punch from Lin Sun and was killed on the spot. The bloody scene shocked everyone and they were completely awakened. It was indisputable that demon god Lin wasn't killed by the Imperial Way Forbidden Formation. Instead, he walked out alive without anyone knowing. How dare you? Zhongli Wuji was furious and shocked at the same time. If the Imperial Way Forbidden Formation couldn't do anything to demon god Lin, how could he fight? Dare? Don't you have a brain? As Lin Sun spoke, he had already charged over. He was filled with hatred and he couldn't tolerate it any longer. Back at the Spring and Autumn Pavilion, this fellow had clamored that he would be the first to kill him when he arrived at the ancient path green lamp tree. Now, they had joined forces to set up a trap to kill him with the Imperial Way Forbidden Formation. It was truly intolerable. Boom! Lin Sun charged over like a demon god. He was extremely disdainful, shocking everyone present. Humph! Zhongli Wuji's eyes were cold, and he didn't hesitate to use his trump card. Clang! The black spirit demon subduing shuttle flew out at lightning speed. It was unpredictable and had an unimaginably terrifying penetrative force. Swoosh! Almost at the same time, a snow-white blade swept out from Lin Sun's body. Lin Sun was already on guard against this attack, so he wouldn't be caught off guard like last time. Clang! The collision between the two didn't seem like a battle between two treasures, but more like a battle between two peerless experts. Terrifying and deafening divine radiance erupted. Instantly, Zhongli Wuji's entire body trembled, and he was shaken to the point it was extremely uncomfortable, to the point he almost coughed up blood. Most shocking and infuriating to him was that a gap had actually appeared on his dark spirit exorcism, and it was almost severed into two, causing it to wail endlessly. This was an ancestral artifact of their Zhongli clan. Even though it wasn't an extreme weapon of the King Dao, it could forever rival the might of an extreme weapon of the King Dao. Yet now, it had suffered a heavy injury in merely the first collision. Run! Zhongli Wuji immediately turned around and fled. Controlling the Imperial Dao Forbidden Array had already consumed a large amount of his physical strength. Now that even his trump card had been damaged, how could he have the courage to compete with Lin Sun? However, he was too late. As early as when he took out the broken blade, Lin Sun had already rushed to him, seized the opportunity and pressed his palm down. In the center of his palm, the Swanee seal shrunk to the limit and blossomed with resplendent light. Bang! Right at the instant Zhongli Wuji turned around, his back was struck fiercely by the Swanee seal. Instantly, a wave of the sound of bones shattering resounded while his entire body was blasted flying. He coughed up large mouthfuls of blood while his vision darkened, and he almost fainted from the intense pain. At this extremely dangerous moment, he flicked his sleeve. A bronze umbrella that was coiled with black light opened up, and it possessed the miraculous effect of covering the heavens and the earth and calling itself the world. This was similarly Zhongli Wuji's trump card. The universe umbrella possessed an extremely shocking defensive strength. Moreover, the surface of the umbrella was covered in miraculous Dao markings that were capable of reflecting all attacks back to one's opponent. Lin Sun, do you really intend to kill me? Aren't you worried that you'll suffer the full force revenge of my Zhongli clan once you leave Dark Parasol Mountain? Zhongli Wuji had a livid expression as he threatened Lin Sun, yet he was actually panicking to the extreme in his heart. He was truly unable to imagine how demon god Lin Sun could be so terrifying to the point that even the Imperial Dao Forbidden Array couldn't kill Lin Sun. Moreover, Lin Sun's combat strength was heaven-defying and terrifying. Lin Sun's gaze was piercingly cold, while flames of rage seethed in his heart. It was clearly Zhongli Wuji who wanted to kill him step by step, yet in the end, Zhongli Wuji seemed to be the victim instead. Moreover, Zhongli Wuji even dared to threaten him in such an arrogant manner. This was simply intolerable. Rip! The broken blade shot out in a dazzling, white, and dreamy manner. In merely the blink of an eye, a crack appeared on the universe umbrella. Zhongli Wuji's expression changed greatly, and he was so shocked that his soul almost flew out of his body. What kind of treasure was that? How could it be so abnormal and ferocious? At this extremely dangerous juncture, Qing Lian came to his rescue in time. She waved a long and narrow cyan saber that was shaped like a bird's beak and slashed through the void. Dong! Lin Sun didn't dodge at all. He smashed his fist out, and with a rumble, merely the dazzling and blazing fist energy dispersed the attack. Qing Lian on the other hand, felt as if a storm had fiercely slammed into her body. She flew out uncontrollably as she let out a shrill cry. At this moment, Lin Sun was in hot pursuit as he swooped down towards Zhongli Wuji. He hated this fellow who was like a smiling tiger the most. He even suspected that Zhongli Wuji was the one who set up this formation to trap him. Should I go or not? Lei Qianjun was eager to make a move. He'd already discerned that the broken blade in Lin Sun's hand was extremely extraordinary. It was actually a divine weapon. This was a precious treasure that was forged from true divine materials. It was extremely rare, and its might was even more terrifying than an imperial weapon. Some formidable divine weapons even possessed a might that wasn't inferior to a saint weapon. Let's wait a little longer. Mu Jianting sensed that the situation was slightly bad. Even the imperial restrictive formation was unable to trap Lin Sun, and this caused him to be shocked and incomparably fearful. He suspected that even if he utilized some of his trump cards, it was very likely that he would be unable to do anything to Lin Sun. A bloody battle was unfolding in the battlefield. After Lin Sun walked out of the imperial restrictive formation, he displayed great might and killed Sha Luchan with a single punch while everyone was caught off guard. Moreover, at this moment, he'd slaughtered Zhongli Wuji and Qing Lian to the point of utter defeat. His arrogant and graceful bearing caused all the experts that were watching the battle in the distance to be awed and fall into a trance. Crack! Another crack was torn open on the universe umbrella by the broken blade, and it emitted a cracking sound. This extremely miraculous ancient treasure was obviously on the verge of being destroyed. However, Zhongli Wuji didn't have the time to care about his heartache. He'd sensed that his life was in danger, and he fled with all his might while panicking like a stray dog. As a peerless figure, he'd never been in such a sorry state since he'd started cultivating. The indescribable humiliation and terror caused him to show signs of being on the verge of collapse. Qing Lian wasn't in a good state as well. The imperial restrictive formation was her trump card, and it was her greatest reliance in seizing the fortune this time. However, it was actually unable to kill Lin Sun, and this caused her to suffer an extremely heavy blow. Up until this moment, she'd wanted to flee many times to avoid Lin Sun's attack and find an opportunity to fight again. However, she was always unable to do so, because she would be forcefully intercepted by Lin Sun the moment she revealed any signs of fleeing. This caused her to have no choice but to choose to fight desperately. Bang! In merely a short moment, the universe umbrella was slashed apart by the broken blade and shattered with a bang. An extremely miraculous ancient treasure was destroyed just like that. Brother Mu, if you don't act now, when will you act? Zhongli Wuji shouted in terror. He was on the verge of collapse, and he couldn't hold on any longer. He'd placed all his hopes on Mu Jianting and Lei Qianjun. However, what chilled his heart was that the two of them remained indifferent when they heard his cries for help. Zhongli Wuji was incomparably furious. However, before he could finish speaking, a crack resounded and his neck was broken. Even at the moment of his death, his eyes were wide open, and they were filled with endless unwillingness and rage. Another peerless figure had been killed. The crowd was dumbfounded. Whether it was Zhongli Wuji or Sha Luchan, both of them had monstrous ancient forces behind them, yet they were killed by demon god Lin just like that. Did he not have any scruples at all? This was simply unimaginable. Qing Lian screamed. She was completely terrified, and she felt a chill run down her spine. She'd always regarded Lin Sun as someone she could bully and humiliate, but she'd never imagined that a helpless youth from the mortal world would act so ruthlessly and decisively. It's your turn. Lin Sun turned his gaze over. His black eyes were as cold as the abyss, causing Qing Lian to shiver all over as if she'd fallen into an ice cave. What kind of person was this? No. He was a demon god. Even someone as proud as Qing Lian felt despair at this moment. She somewhat regretted offending such an unscrupulous and fearless demon god Lin Sun. Miss Lian don't be afraid. With us here, demon god Lin Sun won't be able to do as he pleases. Right at this moment, Mu Jianting, who was in the distance, made a move. He let out a long howl and charged into the battlefield. An ancient sword with pine patterns glowed, and a brilliant sword intent radiated from it. Boom! Almost at the same time, Lei Qianjun attacked from the other side with his thunderous long rod. Scram! Who do you think you are? You're just losers. Do you think you can stop me from killing whoever I want? Lin Sun bellowed. His body shone brightly as he raised his fist and punched. Lei Qianjun was so angry that his teeth itched. He didn't have any grudges with Lin Sun, but he was ambushed by Lin Sun and almost fell for it. In the end, he was even lured into a meticulously arranged trap. If he wasn't proficient in spiritual tattoos, he would have definitely been killed in that forbidden formation. Now, these two guys stood up for Qing Lian. They really wanted a yard after being given an inch. Their deaths weren't to be regretted. Swish! The broken blade swept through the air and charged towards Mu Jianting. At the same time, a snow-white ice hornless dragon surged out from his body and charged towards Lei Qianjun. Meanwhile, he continued to attack Qing Lian. One person, at this moment, was facing three peerless figures and taking the initiative to attack. If this news were to spread out, it would definitely cause a huge commotion. Looking at the West Hung boundary, or even the entire ancient desolation, who dared to be so arrogant and domineering? Boom! The sky and earth shook and the void exploded. It was only a distance of 3 kilometers, but Lin Sun had already reached Qing Lian. Mu Jianting's face was livid as he shouted, "How dare you!" He and Lei Qianjun rushed over to attack. At the same time, Qing Lian turned around and fled. Her fighting spirit had completely collapsed. Lin Sun's momentum was unmatched, and he had the qi of swallowing 8 desolations. She didn't dare to count on Mu Jianting and Lei Qianjun to save her from this disaster. Unfortunately, although she fled fast, she was still a little bit slower. Lin Sun's heaven-shaking fist smashed into her body. Her slender and graceful body exploded in an instant, flesh and blood flying everywhere. Almost at the same time, Mu Jianting and Lei Qianjun also arrived. However, behind Lin Sun, a phantom of a divine beast emerged and blocked all their attacks. Boom! A terrifying collision took place here. Divine splendor overflowed in all directions. The crowd in the distance had long been stunned and speechless. What was the power of a demon? Chapter 920. In the end, Mu Jianting and Lei Qianjun failed to save Qing Lian. She was killed by Lin Sun, her delicate body turned into flesh and blood. The scene was extremely bloody. The experts watching the battle from afar trembled. Lin Sun was too strong. Even 2 peerless figures couldn't stop him. Unexpectedly, after Qing Lian was blasted apart, her soul core suddenly transformed into an azure phoenix image that flashed explosively towards the distance. Obviously, she'd abandoned her body at the critical moment of her death, and only then was she lucky enough to preserve her soul. Lin Sun's lips uttered the sound of Tao, and the profound meaning of Pu Lao's roar was released, turning into golden sound waves and spreading out. Boom! Qing Lian's spirit was severely injured. She let out a shrill scream and almost disintegrated in the void. In the end, she escaped with only a wisp of her remnant soul. It wasn't that Lin Sun was merciful, but at this moment, Mu Jianting and Lei Qianjun had arrived with fierce attacks. "Lin Sun, you're courting death." Mu Jianting was furious. He and Lei Qianjun tried to save Qing Lian, but she almost died. This made him feel very humiliated. You can't even protect yourself, yet you still dare to talk nonsense. Do you really think I can't do anything to you? Lin Sun turned around, his eyes frighteningly cold, and rushed towards Mu Jianting and Lei Qianjun without hesitation. Qing Lian's escape made him angry. He completely hated Mu Jianting and Lei Qianjun. These 2 guys had ruined his plans again and again. He couldn't tolerate it. "How dare you mess around with the person we want to protect?" Mu Jianting and Lei Qianjun were also livid, emitting a terrifying aura. "Stop talking nonsense, give me your life." Lin Sun directly attacked. His fists bloomed with dazzling light, causing the void to tremble and the sky to change color. This kind of power was too terrifying. Moreover, his whole body emitted a clear divine light, every inch of his skin flowing with mellow Tao aura. He was as dazzling as a cyan sun. Boom! Mu Jianting and Lei Qianjun didn't dodge. One controlled the ancient sword with Tao patterns, and the other waved the thunder rod, fighting fiercely with Lin Sun. We showed weakness just now because we wanted to use this formation to kill you. Do you really think we're afraid of you? Mu Jianting spoke in a low voice as he suddenly raised his head. His handsome face was filled with killing intent, and his eyes were bone-piercingly cold. His figure was towering like a pine tree as he took a step forward, and it was like he'd shrunk the ground to an inch with a single step. A string of dense Tao markings drifted out from his ancient sword that were dazzling like the rain, and it was terrifying to the extreme. Dang! An ear-piercing collision resounded. Neither of them dodged and collided head-on. For a time, the scene of the world collapsing, the sun sinking, and the moon being destroyed appeared here. Ghosts wailed and gods howled while dazzling divine radiance swept out, and the force of destruction shook the world. Dang! 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 In just that instant, the two of them fiercely clashed more than 10 times. It could be said to be a battle of the peak, and the scene was world-shaking. One had to admit that Mu Jianting had indeed become much stronger compared to the last time he fought Lin Sun. His ancient sword with pine patterns revealed unprecedented might, causing his combat strength to rise along with it. But in the end, he was shaken to the point that his entire body trembled, and he retreated while coughing up blood. His expression was extremely unsightly. Although he was strong, Lin Sun was stronger than him. Most importantly, Lin Sun was still fighting Lei Qianjun during this entire process. Under the circumstances of 1 against 2, Lin Sun was still unparalleled in strength. How could Mu Jianting not be shocked and furious? The broken blade was illusory, lustrous and resplendent. It flashed in the air, and its peerless edge almost swept towards Mu Jianting's neck. A strand of his long hair was cut off, and it fluttered along with the violent wind before being minced into pieces and vanishing in a puff of smoke. Mu Jianting was horrified, and he didn't dare let his imagination run wild any longer. This opponent was too strong, and he was unimaginably difficult to deal with. Lin Sun's figure became even more illusory, and a dazzling clear radiance rose as he flickered and teleported in the air. He controlled the broken blade with his divine sense to fight Mu Jianting, but he himself was fighting Lei Qianjun. The strength of his fist wasn't inferior to the might of the broken blade at all. It was ferocious, violent, and all-conquering. He was like an ancient devil god that had been born into the world. Bang! Not long after, Lei Qianjun was shaken back as well. He staggered back, and his heart was filled with terror and astonishment. Lin Sun's might was too strong, and he had no choice but to dodge. If I had known earlier, I would have joined forces to kill you just now. Lei Qianjun was filled with hatred, and the more he thought about it, the more he regretted it. He should have acted decisively when Lin Sun and Zhongli Wuji were fighting, instead of choosing to watch from the sidelines and missing a great opportunity. If you had acted then, it would have been difficult for you to escape death. Lin Sun sneered in his heart. Lei Qianjun still had the face to say such words, as if he had taken advantage of the situation. Inside his body, Lin Sun suddenly operated the battle saint technique, and the momentum of his whole body suddenly changed. He was now filled with a fearless and invincible belief. Bang! His figure violently dashed forward, still displaying the 9 strikes for shaking heaven, but this time, the strength of his fist was different. Just the momentum alone was enough to intimidate the minds of the experts in the distance, making them feel despair and fear. The heaven and earth were shaking, driven by the terrifying fighting strength. In a trance, Lin Sun seemed to have transformed into a great devil god, sweeping through the 9 heavens and sweeping away all obstacles. Far away, Yu Lingkong's heart trembled, and his eyes flickered frequently. He actually became stronger again. Is this his limit? Although Ji Xingyao's expression was calm, her heart was in turmoil, and it was difficult for her to maintain her composure. Bang! 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 Lei Qianjun sensed that something was wrong and tried his best to resist. However, he was shaken by the punches and staggered back all the way. In the end, he coughed up blood again and again. His face was extremely pale, and his body was twitching violently. He was seriously injured, and was completely suppressed by Lin Sun. His qi was almost shaken out of order. Bang! In the end, he directly flew out like a kite with a broken string. At the same time, Mu Jianting was in a precarious situation. As Lin Sun operated the battle saint technique, the power of the broken blade also skyrocketed. Its sharpness was peerless, and its murderous intent disturbed the universe. The ancient sword with pine patterns was shaken until it buzzed and wailed, as if it was about to break. Mu Jianting's long hair was disheveled, and his clothes were torn. His exposed skin was full of bloodstains, dripping with blood. He was injured by the saber qi released by the broken blade. The experts in the distance were completely stunned. Sha Luchan was killed with a punch, Zhongli Wuji's neck was broken, and Qing Liana fled for her life with only a remnant soul. Now, even Mu Jianting and Lei Qianjun were completely suppressed and suffered heavy blows. All of this made Lin Sun almost invincible, and he was extremely terrifying. It seems that he has already set foot on the dead end of the reincarnation developing realm, just like you and me. No wonder he dares to act so recklessly. Yu Lingkong's eyes flashed with killing intent. This fact made it impossible for him to remain calm. Ji Xingyao was silent. She remembered the scene when she fought with Lin Sun for the first time in Yin capital. At that time, she vaguely sensed that Lin Sun had set foot on the top of the path, but she was not sure. Now, it only further confirmed her guess. At this moment, something strange happened in the field. Lei Qianjun, who was completely suppressed, suddenly roared, "I've tolerated you for a long time. Go to hell." Whoosh! A vertical eye suddenly opened in the center of his forehead, shooting out a bolt of lightning that eclipsed the sun and the moon. It was as dark as ink, strange and terrifying, and it swept towards Lin Sun. Dharma-destroying thunder eye! In the distance, Yu Lingkong and Ji Xingyao's expressions changed slightly. This was a kind of talent that had been lost for countless years. It was extremely terrifying, and it had the power to destroy all things. However, even they had never imagined that Lei Qianjuan's true trump card was actually such a terrifying innate talent that could shake the ancients and dazzle contemporaries. Lin Sun was too close to Lei Qianjun. Even though he had been on guard, he was still scratched, and a bloody hole appeared on his shoulder. The strangest thing was that this bolt of black lightning contained the power of Dharma destroying. In an instant, it spread all over Lin Sun's body, intending to destroy the divine wheel in his body. That was the foundation of cultivation. If it was destroyed, Lin Sun would be crippled. Lin Sun, your time has come. Lei Qianjun laughed. Is that so? With a cold snort, Lin Sun's body seemed to have turned into a black hole, bursting out with obscure and strange devouring power. The way of star obliteration. In an instant, the abnormality in Lin Sun's body was completely devoured and refined, leaving nothing behind. Even the wound on his shoulder was healing rapidly. This! Lei Qianjuan's body stiffened, as if he had been struck by lightning. He was in an extremely weak state at the moment, with an indescribable exhaustion and weakness. He had not truly grasped the power of the Dharma-destroying thunder eye. This time, he had used all his strength to barely display it. He had thought that he could easily destroy Lin Sun, but in the blink of an eye, Lin Sun had completely recovered as if nothing had happened. Not only him, but even Yu Lingkong and Ji Xingyao in the distance were shocked. How could such a destructive power be ineffective against demon god Lin? How was this possible? Lei Qianjun had completely gone mad. He could not accept this fact. He wanted to display the Dharma-destroying thunder eye again, but before he could do so, he coughed up blood. In the end, he failed. He was already at the end of his rope, and could not launch a second strike. Die. At this moment, Lin Sun's expression was cold as he rushed forward. Brother Mu. At this critical moment, Lei Qianjun was so frightened that his soul almost left his body. He was about to ask Mu Jianting for help, but he did not expect to see Mu Jianting's incomparable fury. Mu Jianting, who was constantly being suppressed by Duan Ren, actually withdrew and fled at this moment. From beginning to end, Mu Jianting did not show any signs of wanting to help him. All of a sudden, Lei Qianjun felt as if he had been stabbed in the back. His heart turned cold and he was beyond furious. He could not imagine that his ally would abandon him at this moment. Boom! Lei Qianjun's mind was in chaos as the fist energy smashed towards him. He did not even have time to dodge. His chest was instantly smashed, and his whole body flew out like a broken sandbag. His eyes were wide open as he stared at Mu Jianting, who was fleeing in the distance. It was obvious how much he hated Mu Jianting. With a plop, he fell on the ground hundreds of meters away and could not get up again. There was a shocking bloody hole in his chest, from which blood gushed out like a fountain. Lei Qianjun turned his head with difficulty and looked at Lin Sun, who was approaching him. He revealed an extremely resentful expression and said intermittently, "Lin Sun, you can't kill me. I will come back to avenge." Chapter 921. Lei Qianjun was dead. Before his death, he was filled with unwillingness and despair. Mu Jianting's betrayal at the last moment had thrown his mind into chaos, and he didn't even have time to dodge before his chest was smashed by Lin Sun's fist. The crowd was stunned and speechless. They couldn't imagine the result of this battle. Mu Jianting, Lei Qianjun, and Zhongli Wuji had joined hands to set up a trap in advance and trapped Lin Sun in a royal forbidden formation. Therefore, everyone thought that Lin Sun had no hope of survival and was destined to be killed. At that time, many powerhouses had sighed and felt sorry for Lin Sun. However, everything that happened after that was inconceivably reversed. No one had expected that Lin Sun would walk out of a formation that could trap and kill old monsters in the King realm so easily and unscathed. It was full of inconceivability. Then, Sha Luchan was killed with a punch, Zhongli Wuji's neck was broken, and Qing Lian was seriously injured and escaped with only a wisp of her soul. All of this was shocking, and it made Lin Sun seem like an invincible celestial being. Until now, when Lei Qianjun was killed and Mu Jianting fled in panic, the crowd was completely shocked. They were stunned and stood there in a daze. They were peerless figures who were the most outstanding and dazzling among the younger generation of the entire West Heng world. But now they were all defeated by Lin Sun with heavy casualties, which was undoubtedly too shocking. If it was spread out, it was bound to cause a great shock. In the field, Lin Sun was about to chase after Mu Jianting, but he suddenly noticed that a vertical eye had emerged from Lei Qianjun's body that had been blasted to death. It emitted a black lightning halo, which was extremely strange and terrifying. The Eye of Destruction. Lin Sun's pupils shrank, but before he could react, he saw the vertical eye suddenly burst out with blazing lightning as if it had a mind of its own. It wrapped Lei Qianjun's body and disappeared in the void. It was so fast that Lin Sun didn't even have time to stop it. This made his face sink as he thought of Lei Qianjun's words before his death. "Lin Sun, you can't kill me. I'll definitely come back for revenge." Is it because of this vertical eye? Lin Sun sighed in his heart. These peerless figures were really not easy to kill. They had too many life-saving trump cards, which were incomparable to other practitioners. However, Lin Sun was certain that even if Lei Qianjun still had a chance to survive, he wouldn't be able to recover in a short period of time. Without delay, Lin Sun seized the time to clean up the battlefield. Although this battle was extremely dangerous, the harvest was also great. Sha Luchan, Zhongli Wuji and the others were killed, and their treasures became Lin Sun's spoils of war. Moreover, the spoils of war were extraordinarily large. For example, the set of ancient array flags and array discs left behind by Qing Lian could set up a true Emperor Dao restriction array. In addition, these peerless figures had grabbed some fortunes before, and now they all belonged to Lin Sun. While Lin Sun was cleaning up the spoils of war, the crowd in the distance gradually recovered from the shock. When they saw this scene, although they were envious, no one dared to take advantage of the situation to rob him. The scene of Lin Sun killing a group of peerless figures was still fresh in their minds. Who dared to rob his spoils of war at this time? In the distance, Yu Lingkong's eyes were surging with cold light. He seemed to be ready to make a move, but in the end, he didn't take any action. Why don't you do it? Ji Xingyao suddenly looked at Yu Lingkong, who was surging with killing intent, which was keenly captured by her. There's no hurry. Yu Lingkong smiled slightly, and his expression became calm again. Let him live for a while. In the end, his life will be mine sooner or later. It seems that you're very confident in killing Lin Sun? A trace of surprise flashed in Ji Xingyao's clear eyes. Yu Lingkong slightly raised the corner of his mouth, and a meaningful smile appeared on his face. He said, "If it's a real battle of life and death, Miss Ji might also be able to achieve this, right?" Ji Xingyao said nothing and turned away. Yu Lingkong didn't discuss this topic anymore. He raised his eyes, looked at Lin Sun in the distance, and then turned away. They all left? I thought they couldn't help but take action. It seems that they also began to be alert and vigilant. Lin Sun, who was cleaning up the spoils of war, raised his head, glanced at the distance with his black eyes, and frowned imperceptibly. When he was fighting with Mu Jianting before, he had keenly noticed that there were some powerful breaths watching all this in the dark. If it weren't for this, he would have used thunderous means to kill his opponents directly instead of choosing to deal with Mu Jianting. Similarly, the reason why he didn't leave immediately was that he was waiting to see who else would jump out. But to Lin Sun's surprise, no one stood out in the end. Obviously, the battle just now had made them vigilant and alert, and they didn't dare to take action rashly. This is a little troublesome. Lin Sun thought that once the enemy became cautious, it would only be more dangerous. However, Lin Sun didn't worry about anything. He still had some trump cards in his hand. If he really encountered a fatal danger, he wouldn't hold back any more. Swish! Not long after, Lin Sun's figure flashed and disappeared with the spoils of war. Demon God Lin deserves to be called. According to this situation, who in the younger generation of West world can compete with him in the future? It was not until Lin Sun left that the heroes who were watching the battle in the distance dared to talk about it. All of them had extremely complicated feelings. Perhaps only figures like Fairy Ji and Child Yu can compete with Demon God Lin? Even the king's forbidden formation can't kill him. What kind of holy treasure do you think Lin Sun has in his hand to be able to achieve this? Some people thought they were smart and sneered. Demon God Lin has pierced the sky and caused great trouble this time. How can those peerless figures be so easy to kill? Even if he can leave alive, he will be targeted by the old monsters of the major forces the moment he walks out of Azure Mountain and be killed. Someone reminded, "Friend, be careful of the trouble that comes from the mouth. Don't talk about Demon God Lin behind his back in the future. He is a fierce and unscrupulous person. No matter what your identity and origin are, he will still kill you." Not long after, the heroes all left. Although the battle just now was shocking, they were more concerned about the fates and opportunities on the ancient path's green lamp tree. By this time, more than half of the powerhouses who had arrived on the ancient path's green lamp tree had died. Many of them died in the fierce battle and died with grievances. There were also some powerhouses who realized that the situation was not good. In order to save their lives, they decisively chose to retreat and returned to the ancient path's green lamp tree, no longer participating in the competition. At this time, only a small number of powerhouses were still lingering on the ancient path's green lamp tree. These were all peerless figures among the heavenly talent. For example, Yu Lingkong, Ji Xingyao, Luo Jia, and so on. However, to everyone's surprise, after the first round of fates descended, the remaining bronze flower buds on the ancient path's green lamp tree did not bloom for a long time. For a moment, the heroes all lay dormant and waited quietly. The battle and killing also stopped. Time passed bit by bit. The atmosphere on the ancient path's green lamp tree became more and more silent. Purple divine light permeated the top and bottom of the ancient tree, and the bronze flower buds gushed out the light of Tao. It was dreamy, ethereal, and holy. Why hasn't there been any fates yet? Many powerhouses were surprised. This was too abnormal, different from the past Tao discussion lantern festivals. I have a hunch that when this fates descend, it is destined to be extraordinary. It is very likely to be an unprecedented great fates, and the first fates are likely to be born. There were also people who were looking forward to it. At this time, Lin Sun had already woken up from meditation. His physical strength had recovered to its peak state, and his cultivation was obviously more refined than before. He also noticed the abnormality of the ancient path's green lamp tree, so he arrived at the area near the ancient tree crown early. Since he had nothing to do, Lin soon began to count the spoils of war one by one. This time, he set foot on the ancient path's green lamp tree, and he gained a lot. First, he obtained a precious and rare divine material, the tear-stained phoenix bloodstone, and then suppressed a spiritual peerless king medicine. After that unparalleled bloody battle, the spoils of war he obtained were even more astonishing. There were magical ancient treasures, precious spiritual medicines, rare spiritual materials, and so on. There were dozens of kinds. For example, a green curved blade shaped like a bird's beak, with a narrow and long blade, obtained from Qing Lian. It was called the Phoenix Cry Reverse Spirit, and it was an ancient treasure passed down by the Cyan Phoenix clan. For example, the thunder rod obtained from Lei Qianjun had an even more astonishing origin. It was called the Chaotic Demon Thunderclap Rod, and it was a treasure personally refined by a saint of the barbarian clan of the Great Wilderness. In addition, there was Shao Yuchan's Dark Light Halberd, Zhongli Wuji's Purple Jade Rui, and so on. Every treasure was incomparably marvelous. Although they were not real King's Path weapons, their power was enough to rival them. As for the spiritual medicines and various spiritual materials obtained, the number was even greater. They had all kinds of wonderful uses, dazzling and inestimable value. From this, it could be seen how astonishing the resources of these peerless figures were. They were born in ancient orthodoxies and clans, and the precious cultivation resources they possessed were far beyond that of ordinary cultivators in the world. Among the four elements of cultivation, wealth, companionship, method, and place, wealth was the first. Could be imagined how crucial and important it was. With the support of so many cultivation resources, even a pig would be able to gain sentience and transform into a mighty demon pig. However, for Lin Sun, the most exciting harvest this time was an animal skin scroll and a set of King's Path forbidden formation. The animal skin scroll was filled with cyan color, and it was the fortune obtained from Lei Qianjun. The most miraculous thing was that this animal skin scroll was bound by a golden Tao power. With Lin Sun's current strength, he couldn't open it. Lin Sun still remembered that at that time, Chuan Mu Jianting and Lei Qianjun pretended to fight for this animal skin scroll, which made him careless and sneak attacked by them. Chapter 922. The animal skin scroll was bound by a golden Taoist pattern like a silk thread and couldn't be opened. But it was suffused with green brilliance, and there was a faint sound of Taoism drifting out from it, like the voice of a sage reciting the essence of the Great Way, which was deafening. It was really magical. Lin Sun's spiritual power was so powerful that he had already reached the level of divine flower gathering in acupoint, but he couldn't explore it and peep at its mystery. Is it because the mystery recorded in this animal skin scroll is too difficult and supreme for me to comprehend in this realm? Lin Sun pondered. He realized that the key to opening the animal skin roll lay in the thread-like golden Taoist pattern that was bound to the upper part of the roll. After carefully studying it, he was surprised because the aura of the golden Taoist pattern had a shocking and sacred feeling. Green brilliance drifting, Taoist sound ringing, and bound by golden Taoist pattern. The mystery hidden in this animal skin scroll is absolutely extraordinary. After a long time, Lin Sun carefully put it into the wordless pagoda and sealed it up. Then he fixed his eyes on the royal forbidden formation. This formation was composed of 108 white jade flags and 3 formation discs. It was called King's Four Symbols, and it was a royal formation personally refined by the ancestor of Cyan Phoenix tribe. Once it was activated, it could communicate with the power of heaven and earth, control the method of the 4 symbols, and produce a restrictive fluctuation that could trap and kill a king realm strongman. It could be said that this was absolutely a great killing weapon with unimaginable power. However, only the real grandmasters of spiritual tattoos and the strongmen of the king realm could fully release the mystery and power of this formation. For example, when Qing Lian and others set up this formation, even though they joined hands to control it, the lethality they exerted was less than 30% of its full power. After carefully figuring out all the mysteries of this royal forbidden formation, Lin Sun felt a lingering fear in his heart. He was sure that if a spiritual tattooist attacked him just now, he would probably be killed in an instant. It's a pity that using this formation not only consumes physical strength, but also requires at least tens of thousands of top-grade spiritual marrow as the source of power. The price is too high, Lin Sun sighed in his heart. He was very clearly aware that such a King Dao forbidden formation could only be continuously activated when it was set up on an extremely divine spirit vein, and it couldn't be casually utilized. After all, not to mention an ordinary cultivator, even the inheritors of those ancient sects would probably be unable to bear the price of over 10,000 high-grade spirit marrow. It seemed like such an enormous amount of spirit quintessence could be used to purchase a true imperial weapon. However, if I can trap and kill the old monster in the king realm, it's worth it. Lin Sun secretly decided to use this formation as his trump card and wouldn't use it easily. Fortunately, he managed to scavenge nearly 30,000 pieces of high-grade spiritual essence from Qing Lian's storage bracelet. Obviously, she also knew the price to pay to operate this formation, so she had already prepared it in advance. However, she was neither a king realm expert nor a guru who was proficient in spiritual tattoos. No matter how well prepared she was, she could not give full play to the real power of this set of restrictions. Buzz. Suddenly, the green lamp tree that had been silent for a long time seemed to have awakened at this moment, and it emitted a shocking and obscure fluctuation. In an instant, dazzling purple divine radiance spread out from its bronze trunk, and it glowed with shocking vitality. Not only Lin Sun, but all the powerhouses scattered around the crown of the divine tree were alarmed at the first possible moment. Was the fortune coming? Outside the azure parasol mountain, countless cultivators were waiting anxiously and puzzled. The green lamp tree had been silent for too long. Almost 12 hours had passed, and there was still no movement from it. There shouldn't be an accident, right? A big shot frowned. Right at this moment there was a rumble, and then an extremely dazzling purple divine radiance suddenly rushed out from the mountainside of the azure parasol mountain in the distance. It rose into the sky and shattered the clouds. For a time, the heavens, the earth, the mountains, the rivers, and everything in the world were dyed with a layer of shimmering and divine purple. It was magnificent, brilliant, and vast. Countless cultivators were shocked. They opened their eyes wide, and then they were completely excited. A great fortune is definitely coming. All of a sudden, even a big shot like Granny Golden Crane was excited. They had been waiting for a long time, and the divine scene before them made them realize that the fortune that was about to come was bound to be unprecedented, and it was different from the past. A true great fortune is about to appear. Many powerhouses gathered under the green lamp tree. In order to save their lives, they had retreated from the ancient tree in advance, and were unwilling to get involved. However, when they witnessed this scene, they couldn't help but be eager to give it a try. Some powerhouses even gritted their teeth and rushed up the green lamp tree again. They were unwilling to just watch, and they were unwilling to miss such a great fortune that came once in a blue moon. Even if they were in danger of losing their lives, it would be worth it if they could seize the fortune. However, they were merely halfway there when they were dumbstruck and stunned on the spot. Because in their field of vision, the remaining bronze flower buds that hadn't bloomed had withered one by one at this moment. What's going on? Everyone was stunned, and they still didn't dare believe their eyes. Flower petals withered and fell from the branches as if they had lost all vitality. They just floated in midair before turning into ashes and vanishing without a trace. Every single one of those bronze flower buds represented fortune after fortune. Yet now they were withering and withering. It was simply like watching the fortunes vanish and be annihilated before their eyes, and it caused the hearts of all the experts to tremble. They found it difficult to accept this. Why is this happening? Look, the vitality that's flowing away from those bronze flower buds is surging towards the tree crown. A powerhouse shouted. His words woke everyone up from their dreams. At this moment, the other powerhouses also noticed something strange. The reason those bronze flower buds were withering was because the vitality contained within them was flowing away. It was as if they were being devoured by an invisible force, and they were being led to converge towards the ancient tree crown. At this moment, there seemed to be a purple sun glowing in the area of the tree crown. The light was dazzling to the extreme, and it illuminated the clouds high above. Even at the bottom of the ancient tree and outside the azure parasol mountain, it could be seen clearly. My God! That's... Clamorous noise resounded in the various areas, and all the experts revealed shocked expressions. Because it wasn't a sun, but a bronze flower bud that was about to bloom. However, because the radiance it emanated was too dazzling and resplendent, it illuminated the heavens and the earth, and it gave others the misconception that it was the sun in the sky. The first fortune. That's absolutely the first fortune. It's unprecedented and rare since the ancient times, and it's bound to be different from the world. An old fellow muttered involuntarily, and he was excited to the point his entire body trembled. The other great figures were the same. All of them had discerned that the first fortune this time seemed to be too different, and it was completely different from the Tao discussion lantern discussions of the past. Because such an incident had never occurred in the past. The fortunes formed by the other bronze flower buds actually surged like a myriad of streams returning to the origin, and they surged towards a single bronze flower bud. This was too miraculous. It was simply like a group of subjects were paying tribute to a king. It's coming. Yu Lingkong suddenly stood up while his gaze was extremely terrifying like a ray of light, and then his figure flashed and vanished on the spot. I wonder exactly what the first fortune this time is. Is it an inheritance? Or a saint treasure? Or perhaps some sort of divine treasure? As she pondered, Ji Xingyao strode forward, and her figure was ethereal as she flashed towards the distance. The great battle is coming, and an unprecedented great fortune is about to emerge. This time, it depends on who has the ability to seize it. Luo Jia seemed to be lost in thought. Luo Jia seemed to be deep in thought. Her graceful and slender body glowed like a holy and dazzling immortal phoenix. Old rascal, what did you say? When Lin Sun was about to take action, he suddenly noticed that the white ginseng that was suppressed in the wordless pagoda actually muttered, "You want to encroach on such a fortune? Don't even think about it. Want to know? Let me go and I'll tell you." The old fellow spoke leisurely. He was obviously a peerless king herb, but he acted like an old rascal. Boom! Lin soon directly suppressed the old rascal with the golden Tao light, torturing the old rascal to howl and curse with all kinds of obscenities. However, it still gave in the end, and it looked as if it wanted to die from grief and indignation. That's the Azure Parasol Mountain's foundation. It's the crystallization of the saints' blood, sweat, and tears. I dare to say that you so-called prodigies won't be able to enjoy it at all. Instead, you'll bring disaster upon you. Lin Sun was shocked. It seemed that the old rascal really knew something. Make it clear. Lin Sun asked in a stern voice, suppressing the golden Tao light, ready to launch. To deal with such an old rascal, one must use violence to curb violence. He must not show any mercy. How do I know what it is exactly? The old rascal shouted angrily. Lin Sun was not polite and ravaged him again, but in the end, the old rascal couldn't tell the reason. In the end, the old rascal was so anxious that he even put down some harsh words. Little bastard, kill me now if you dare. Otherwise, when I get out of here, I will definitely kill you with my own hands. He gnashed his teeth and emphasized the word kill, which vividly reflected his rogue nature. It was hard to imagine how such a peerless king herb with wisdom could have such a bad rogue character. In the end, Lin Sun gave up the interrogation. After thinking for a while, he turned around and rushed to the crown of the tree. Although the old rascal didn't say anything specific, Lin Sun learned that the bronze flower bud contained a great fortune left by the saint's lifelong effort. It was also called the foundation of Green Parasol Mountain. This was undoubtedly amazing. Since it was related to the saints, it could be imagined how extraordinary this fortune was. The crown of the ancient green lamp tree was filled with purple light. At the top of the trunk of the ancient tree, a bronze flower bud was about to bloom, spurting out dazzling Tao light. Rumble waves of grand Tao sound came out of the bronze flower bud, like a great bell, which made the heaven and the earth resonate. When Lin Sun arrived in this area, peerless figures such as Yu Lingkong, Ji Xingyao, Loka, and some other strong people had already arrived. Everyone's gazes were fixated on the bronze flower bud in unison, and they all wore different expressions.